Welcome, everybody. This is a meeting of the Nevada Unified School District Board of Trustees. It's January 14th. A couple of housekeeping things. Trustee Millerick is not here. He had a conflict this evening, so unfortunately he can't make it, but the rest of the trustees are here this evening. Superintendent Koska is at City Council managing an item there that's occurring on their agenda. So he is there, so we're going to continue to move forward. We still have to do our business. So the board did meet in closed session this evening, and we'll have the report out for closed session. Trustee Aguila.
Thank you. Good evening. On Tuesday, January 14th, 2020, the Nevada Unified School District Board of Trustees met in closed session to review the Administrative Hearing Panel's recommendation on an expulsion of student number 100050798. Based on the review of the panel's recommendation, Trustee Nell made the motion to expel. The student will be expelled to Marin County Office of Education's Marin Community School for the 1 year from the date of the board's decision today. For the following ED code violation, 48915A to 48900C. Trustee Gasson, second the motion. So now we'll take the roll. And Trustee Aguila, that's A. Trustee Butler?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Trustee Cooper?
Aye.
Aye. Trustee Gasson?
Aye.
Trustee Nell?
Aye.
Trustee Mack?
Aye.
And Trustee Millerick, absent. Okay, absent. All right. So then the second item that we discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code 54957 and 54956, conference with labor negotiators, Jonathan Ferrer, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resource Employees Organization, Nevada Federation of Teachers, NFT. And so we gave direction. Next, we did in closed session. We discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code 54957 and 54956. Conference with labor negotiators. We discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code 54957 and 54956. Conference with labor negotiators. Jonathan Ferrer, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources Employee Organization, California School Employees Association, CSEA, gave direction. And I think that's it.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
Maybe just, there were two other items that were supposed to be discussed. We did not discuss those, items E and IMF, just for the record. Okay. Moving on to approve our agenda this evening. It stands as is, so I need approval to move.
I'd like to move approval of tonight's agenda.
Okay. First by Trustee Cooper, second? Okay, second by Trustee Nell. All those in favor to approve our agenda this evening? 6-0, 1 absent. All right, moving on to, if you'd like to make a comment on any item on the agenda or not on the agenda, please fill out a blue card. They're over there on the cart right over there. Bring it up to Ellen and we'll go ahead. I already have a couple right here. And we'll put you into where you're supposed to speak. You have 3 minutes to speak. The timer's right there. When I call your name, come up to the podium, and you can start talking immediately, and the timer will count down. So please stick to the 3 minutes so that we can, everybody gets that time. If you tend to go over, I'll try to ask you to wrap up your comments. So moving on to our consent agenda this evening is, trustees, would you like to pull any items? Did you have a question? Yeah. Go right, what item would you like to pull?
Item 15C,
15C, okay.
the board policy on student board members.
All right.
We just had a few questions because we weren't entirely sure what this bylaw entailed.
Okay.
We were wondering what this meant for all of the student board members. We were wondering what committees we might be joining, if we have a choice in any of which committees we'd be joining, and the commitment that the time commitment that it would take.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll see if anybody else has items to pull, and then if you could stick around maybe are you guys able to stay for another hour? Or were you planning to get up and just leave as soon as you possibly could? Because what we tend to do is when you pull an item from consent, then it becomes a discussion action item, and we plug it into the discussion action item. But I want to also meet your time period, because I understand, students, and you got to get going. And we have 2 staff reports, the English Learner Services Update and the Newcomer Student. Just after those 2 reports, I can do the student trustee board policy, if you'd like, if that works for you guys. Let's see how we do, if you don't mind. Okay. But I also want to meet what works for you. Okay, so we're pulling 15C, the board policy. Anybody else? Okay, let me just make sure that nothing. All right, so let's go ahead and move on our consent agenda.
So I will move acceptance of the consent agenda without item C.
15C, okay. Trustee Nell is a first. Second? Okay. Trustee Mack is a second. All those in favor to approve our consent agenda, 6-0, 1 absent. All right, what I wanted, there was something on our consent. I just want to do a little bit of a shout out. We have 2 retirements. One was Keith Bergman. He retired at the end of December here, and he's our PE teacher at Loma Verde. Just, he started the program of Students in Motion, calling it Loma Verde in Motion, which is now across our elementary schools. So I just want to do a little shout out to him for his work in that. I mean, that has been a huge asset to the elementary schools to get our students moving in the morning and getting them ready for the day in the classroom. So, and the other person was Janice Blair, who's retiring at the end of January here. And I know we honor retirements, but these people are retiring in the middle of the year, and I just want to do a shout out to them. Janice Blair works over at San Marin High School in the office. She's a parent of this community. Her kids went through the schools. She was involved in PTA extensively, so I just want to thank them for their service in Nevada Unified. All right, moving on. We'll do our student presentation. Olive's here. Welcome.
Good evening. Good evening. It's on. Okay. Good evening, Superintendent Koska, who is not here, board members. My name is Fran Rosoff, a teacher at Olive Elementary. Oh, wait. Oh, that's you. I am Fran's stunt double, frequently. But tonight it's official. I am Elizabeth Sasmo-Linick, principal of Olive, and I have the great pleasure to assist Fran in reading her speech, but also to introduce Marcus Oken, who is an instrumental part of what we're going to be presenting. We will introduce these wonderful, wonderful young people in just a minute. But I'm going to be reading Fran's speech. Since she is speechless tonight, could you put that in the minutes somewhere? Just saying. Many, many years ago, when she was finishing up her graduate studies, she had the opportunity to take a film class at San Francisco State University. The process of creating her own movies was a defining moment for her. While trying to sync an audio cassette with an 8mm camera, she realized that creating a movie is a powerful way a message can be shared. She believed that her connection to and perception of movies enables her to better understand the aspects of our own nature. It is this fundamental truth in the enduring understanding and the foundation of her PPL videography unit that technological advances in the communication have had a significant impact on the way information is gathered, packaged, manipulated, presented in the 21st century. She wanted to create an experience for all students and Olive community, and then she was so fortunate to meet Marcus Oken. While collaborating on the Wetlands Project through the Novato Community Television, she witnessed his creative vision for the visual media and enthusiasm for sharing his expertise. This was the foundation for the Olive School video crew. Marcus has donated many, many hours of his time to instruct students and Ms. Rosoff and even me in the technical aspects of movie making. For the past 4 years, all of 5th grade students who choose to take on extra enrichment challenges while balancing their normal responsibilities have been part of the Olive video team. This project began in conjunction with the 2 project-based learning units that she created, the Olive Videography project and Art Working with the Wetlands, a multifaceted environmental and educational process melding natural science, creative art, and public education on behalf of the Hamilton Wetlands Restoration Project. The essential question of the PBL Videography unit was, how can we use digital media to demonstrate knowledge, build school culture, and additionally inform the greater Novato community about the environmental stewardship. And so the video team is introduced, is an introductory look at the media that gives students their first exposure to many real-world skills associated with the graduate profile or the 6 C's, and gets students thinking about communicating through media as a critical skill for their future. Students learn to demonstrate an understanding of framework of framing and composition, creating storyboards, choosing specific and relevant locations to support video composition, and produce and edit videos to entertain, inform, and motivate their audiences. I would now like to introduce the current 5th grade videography team with an explanation of the future process. With me tonight are Julia, Kylie, Maddie, Noah. Unfortunately, Tyler is not here, and then Vivian. First slide, my friend, Julia.
The video team is a group of 5th grade students who come together to create quality content while having fun and working together. This world has so much technology in it that we use to communicate. Knowing how to understand the possibilities of media will give us many opportunities for the future. Each student in our video team is responsible for producing their own documentary project based on school activities throughout the year. Teachers at Olive choose projects that they think are important, and we pick which one we want to document. This gives us the chance to film something we're interested in and share their stories.
Documentaries give people an opportunity to share their experiences and communicate their perspectives and reactions with many other people. Documentaries bring people together without having to be there physically, and we can learn more about what's going on at school. When we make a documentary and talk with parents, teachers, and students, we try to tell their stories to share them with the rest of the school. We have to think all of the different perspectives you can have and be fair to the people we interview. It's our way of saying, I am a student at Olive School and I care about my classmates, but I also care about all the other students and teachers. The video crew process also helps 5th graders document our journey through elementary school to middle school. Here's an example of our short documentary we made, Cooking with the Kindergartners.
We wanted them to learn about how you could plant something and it goes into your mouth after, basically. And we also wanted them to try some foods that they maybe have never tried before, and in this case it was chard. So we decided to put it with something that they're used to eating, eggs and cheese, and to not only to try it, but to see if they could also eat it at home. So the kids planted it a few weeks before, and they watched the whole cycle of from, a seed to a real plant. I would say they really enjoyed cracking the egg, and they really liked, a lot of them really liked the chard in the end. I'd say 3/4 of them came back with a thumbs up that they liked it.
The Olive School Student Council has produced live broadcasts for many years, first using tapes, then cable broadcast, but now we are learning live streaming skills. The Shark Talk live broadcast helps students learn about teachers and what's happening at our school. It's also a way for the student council to get information out to classes, as well as platform for learning about our teachers. Live streaming is more natural and truthful because people can be themselves and make any mistakes, laughs, and reactions are all part of the moment. When you're making a video, you don't feel the same pressure as live streaming. On set, you are more focused and only have one chance to get it right. You may have a script, but you also have the freedom to do what you want. Whether it's pressing buttons, running the camera, or working with our student council or teachers, we all have a part to play.
It's fun learning things about the teachers you may have never known about them. It's also good to know that the teachers are willing to take time out of their day to share stories about themselves and the rest of the school. The process of live streaming allows us to create the moment while working professionally with the students and teachers. One of our favorite parts of the streaming broadcast is the call-in question. Each classes take a turn calling during the broadcast and surprising our staff guest with their question. Here's a short segment from our first live stream for this school year.
The reason why the V in all of school stands for very fun. Miss NUSD.
What is your favorite food, drink, and color?
Favorite food would be a smoothie. Favorite drink is a chocolate coconut rebel. Yummy yum. And favorite color, of course, is, you guys know it, orange.
Tell us about your family.
I have a husband, Gary. We've been married a long, long time. I can't even remember how many years. I have 3 children, my son Chris, daughter Allison, and daughter Jackie. And I have 3 grandkids now. I have Nolan, Maya, and Elise.
What is the movie and sing group really like?
Movie is Coco right now, and singing group is the one that I sing in. It's Marin Oratorio.
Can you whistle the melody of your favorite song for our audience?
I forget to ask it loud. I didn't listen to the podcast.
How long have you been here, and why do you like working at all school?
Do you want to play that 1 second question? Or?
I've been here, this is my 22nd year. I taught preschool at another little school for 7 years before that. I like teaching, I just like working with kids. I like watching your brains expand. I like when you like to learn, so it's just a lot of fun to work with kids.
What is something no one knows about you?
Oh, in my spare time, too many hobbies. I like to garden. I like to ride my bike. I like to do art projects. I like to go hiking. I like to play with my dog. Go out in nature.
At the end of the year, using all our skills, the Olive Video Crew puts together a short film about a fun story that we all write together. The video crew comes up with the idea, and over the course of a few months, we work together to produce the short film. It is written, shot, and edited by the video crew and requires students to work together through the technical and creative challenges necessary to produce a product that showcases our message and one that we can all be proud of. The short film is the highlight of the year. The collaborative effort of the entire video crew. We haven't done this short film yet, but we are very excited to work together and learn how to make a fun short film. The entire process of video production and the process we use to produce the short film requires the video crew to embrace risk-taking and working under a time crunch, as well as developing and using the other skills outlined in our graduate profile. Please enjoy this clip of past short films.
But I'm lactose Great, look over here. Huh? I shot from you to the damn soul. You will pay.
The video crew would like to thank Marcus Oken for his knowledge and guidance, and School Fuel for their continuing support of our artworking with the Wetlands Project.
So as you can see, the media is a critical skill for our students to learn. The 5th grade video crew enrichment program is a way that we can build our caring culture at Olive. Students who are digital natives and communicate their creativity with the rest of their peers, think critically about the events in their school and local community, and use the power of visual media to embark on themselves and make the world a better place. Thank you. I'd like to really express our deep, sincere thanks to Marcus Oken, because without this wonderful young man, this event would not happen with the gusto that it does. So thank you.
I'm getting pretty old over here.
I know. He's 23.
That's all like these kids. Every year. They're amazing.
Thank you.
Great job, students. Is Leslie here? Yeah, we're gonna do a photo. Can we do a photo with Mrs. Rosoff and right here? The principal. Just stand in the middle of the room right there. In the middle. Yeah. Yeah.
How's the meeting?
They have public. Good job. All right, we'll move on to our announcements for our students. Hi.
Hi, my name is DJ. I'm a senior at Marin Oaks. We started our new quarter, and we have 90 students now, and there's also a wait list. We are continuing our work with partners in the community, like Artworks. Last year, we painted a mural at the front of our campus. And we also have Stop Now, which is a music therapy nonprofit at our campus. On Monday, we start our new College of Marin class. We're offering Microsoft Office on Mondays and hospitality management on Fridays, and 24 students are signed up, including me. And before break, our Culinary Academy catered their first event for the school district and received great reviews.
Hi, I'm Eva. I'm a junior at Novato. So we've had quite the eventful new year. We started out with the student versus staff hockey game, and staff won. And soccer is our next game in February. We do one every month, and we're hoping for a win for the students. We started our coin war this week, and all of the proceeds will be donated to the Sonoma County Resilience Fund, which helps support those affected by the California fires. On Thursday, we have our club fair, and we have a whole bunch of new clubs for people to sign up. And we have applications going out for Link Crew, Leadership, Avid, and Yearbook. And for MSA, there is a student choreography showcase the 24th and the 25th. And that same weekend, all of the MSA jazz classes are going to Folsom for a jazz festival. And we have our Winter Spirit Week rally and winter formal at the end of this month. And we're doing an annual Wellness Week. This is our second year doing it, February 10th through the 14th. And we have different speakers coming in. We're going to have a double assembly and use the 2 days of office hours for wellness sessions that people can choose to participate in. And that's what's going on at Novato.
My name's Linnea Peterson. I am a senior at San Marin. And what's going on right now is we have our Winter Whiteout Dance and Rally coming up on the 24th. And then we have 4 water stations being installed at San Marin. And then the Pity Scholarship for students is being announced on Thursday at the boys' basketball game during halftime. And then we have a Do Good crew, which is sponsored by Do Good Be Kind. I run the club this year. I will be passing it down next year. It's the first year having this club. And so we are planning our second kindness week. So we did one last year, and we're going to do one again this year following the 4 assemblies that we did with them in October.
Great. Thank you. And I think the basketball game is Novato High, right?
Yes.
For San Marin, 7:30 on Thursday at San Marin. So it should be exciting. All right. Trustee Nell.
Actually, nothing for tonight other than to say that we will be going up to the Joint Legislative Action Committee trip to Sacramento on the 23rd, and I'll be reporting out as a result of that trip. But that's our, we're anxious to go after seeing the governor's budget and his priorities. So.
Yeah, thank you. Trustee Gasson.
So 2 things. President Butler and I attended yesterday the California State PTA Legislation Conference in Sacramento. It was great. We represent North Marin Council PTA, the 16th district. And it was notable that there were 8 of us in attendance. The event actually sold out this year. It was 150 people through California. So 8 from our North Marin Council came, and they were all from Novato. So I just think that is really impressive that we represented well. The schools, I also would like to acknowledge their attendance or who they came representing. They either were paid to attend through their PTA or self-paid to attend. So yeah, no, it was really nice. The schools are San Ramon, San Marin High School, Pleasant Valley, Lou Sutton, Sinaloa, and San Jose. And that doesn't include myself as representing any school. Those are all schools that were in attendance. And I had mentioned that I was going to hold another Gab with Gasson this Friday, and that's been postponed. It's a teacher staff day, and I forgot I have my kids. So I will put out another date when I don't have my kids to participate. So,
okay. Thank you. Trustee Mack.
Yeah, I had the pleasure yesterday of being at Linwood with Melissa Diaz and the Dual Immersion Committee, Steering Committee. And one, it was great to see just how far we've come, but also talking about where we need to go with it and really realizing that we need to start planning for middle school sooner rather than later. I know it's 3-4 years out, but that's going to come very quickly, and discuss some ideas on just how we can better integrate the program overall into NUSD. I'll talk about that with you guys a little later, but very positive and great energy there. And they're likely going to form their own kind of permanent committee to kind of keep it going because they're realizing they need to have more structure, more, someone taking notes so that when people move on, all the notes are still there. So, but more to come.
Okay. Thank you for attending that. Trustee Cooper.
I went to the Golden Bell Committee meeting this week. That was it.
All right. Trustee Gila.
Yes. So on the 12th, I went to Rancho's reading pajama night at Rancho, and that was really awesome. The kids were so sweet and so cute. And it's just a great opportunity for the community to get to know each other better and to participate in the schools. And so in that school, so be nice to have other schools do it too, and it was just really, I think it was a success. The teacher, the librarian there actually had her husband come and play the guitar as well, and so what a great way to have a community member come and join us as well and be a part of the school environment. So that was really great. So thank you for the invitation. And on the 19th, I went to the actually no, it was on the 9th. I went to the 27th annual Heart of Marin Awards, where I was the interpreter there, and elected officials were there throughout Marin, and just proud to say that some of our youth from our NUSD schools were there. So the youth panelist to present the Youth Volunteer of the Year award, it was Jordan Hovey from Nevada High School. So that was great to see one of our students there. And the student that received an award was Andrea Martinez, for the also for the Volunteer of the Year. And so she's done a lot of work in the teen clinic, and she represented San Marin. So excited to see her there too. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Just as Trustee Gasson said, we both attended the California Legislative Conference for PTA, California PTA. I hadn't done that before, and I'm glad I did, and I probably can hopefully continue to do that. I see Heather Smith here, who is our 16th District President and a parent here in Novato. I thought it was really good because we do, as Trustee Nell said, we also, as trustees, we attend a day in Sacramento ourselves, trustees in Marin County, and kind of do the same thing. We have speakers all lined up, and we hear from a broad perspective of just what's happening in Sacramento. So the focus was really the budget that we heard over the course of the 2 days. So that's it for me. We'll move on to non-agenda public comment, and the first one I have up is Heather Smith, and then Mariah Fisher.
Hi. So I was just going to talk a little bit about PTA LegCon. I just wanted to add to Diane, Olive Elementary wasn't able to send a representative, but their PTA did donate $250. So I'd like to say thank you to them, to North Marin Council, to be able to send some representatives as well. So like we said, my name is Heather Smith, and I am 16th District PTA President. 16th District PTA it assists 36 schools across Marin, Lassen, and Plumas County. I am also the North Marin Council Executive Vice President. For those of you that don't know, North Marin Council are all the PTAs in the Novato schools, and that's all the schools except for Loma Verde. California State PTA is 730,000 members strong, and it is in 3,300 schools across the state. The National PTA is the largest and oldest child advocacy group in the nation. The PTA purpose, which has been lost over the years, especially here in Marin County, is that it is an advocacy group first. We have become instead a fundraising machine to fill the gaps where funding has failed our students. PTA is a group of parents, teachers, and other concerned adults advocating for children and families. For the past 2 days, like she had said, 8 people from Novato PTAs attended California State PTA's legislative conference. Thank you to Debbie and Diane for taking the time out to join us in Sacramento. During our time, we heard from representatives from the governor's office, legislators, and we learned a lot about the state budget. One of the things that we learned is that, one of the things that we learned is that we are one of the richest states in the nation, but we are 41st in per pupil funding. That's not acceptable. Districts across the state are struggling just as we are. We need to do something. We need to speak up. So today, we went into our legislators' offices to talk about the need for better funding for our students, teachers, and schools. We requested more state funding towards STIRS and PERS and adding more funding for special education. And that was just two of the main things that we asked for. We found out today that AB 39, which would seek an increase in per pupil funding, which was pulled last year, is now going to be reintroduced. So hopefully that will help. We also learned today, this is new, this is something that you guys haven't heard yet, that there will be a new bill that our Assemblyman, Mark Levine, is going to be putting forward in February, which seeks the end of ADA, which is big. It's going to he's going to try and do it based on funding on enrollment instead of average daily attendance. His intention with this bill is to stop the $2.1 billion loss per year for the schools. These past 2 days in particular have been great, but it's not nearly enough. We need your voice. Please join us in contacting our representatives, Mike McGuire and Mark Levine. If you need help with that, please contact me. Ask your PTAs to put it in your budget to send somebody next year. And also the biggest thing is to join, because the number of people that are PTA members is the volume of our voice. Thank you.
Good evening. My voice is still a little hoarse from the Packer game, so please excuse me. I had to squeeze it in there
Did
publicly.
the right team win?
I am here this evening as the NFT president to talk about two really important things, one being the parcel tax and the other being negotiations. I want to say publicly, NFT endorses the parcel tax. We recognize the critical funds that this parcel tax will bring to our classrooms. I also, as a homeowner, a mom of 3 kids in our schools, and as a teacher in this district, I also plan on voting for it. I recognize what it brings and what we would lose without it. But I have a hard time kind of gearing up the work that I want to do for it, while I'm still looking at a single line being a 1%. I don't feel like it shows that we are valued, and it's with value comes drive, and I see it with my students in my project-based classes every day. When I value them, when they value me, we work hard every day from bell to bell. And when that value drops, so does the work. And I can say we confidently are not feeling valued. And so while I am already starting to talk about how teachers can help with the parcel tax, I need value to sell that. And so I'm worried. And, it's hard to sit at the negotiations table without the ear of the people who give the authority at the table. And so I wanted to take this chance to tell you what I told the negotiations team. We are behind the parcel tax. We've never not been behind it. But, while I see the opportunity to give us more if the parcel tax passes, the bulk of it can't be with the parcel tax. The bulk of it has to be regardless of it. And that will feed the value, and that will fuel us to fight, if that makes sense. I think our current proposal is really fair. We've worked really hard looking at the same numbers that your team is looking at, and we feel like it's fair, it's manageable, it's doable, it's sellable, because I then have to leave the table and go get votes behind it, and I feel like this is it. And I would love to change my efforts from sitting at that table to selling the parcel tax. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our staff reports. We have 2 very important staff reports coming up. The first one is our English Learner Services update. This is one we do every year, and Rhonda Flemings, hi, will be presenting this evening.
I'll do this one. That's fine.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. Oh, okay. Hey.
Good evening, Board Superintendent Chris Costco, who's not here, and board members. Thank you for this opportunity to be here tonight and provide this English learner update. My name is Rhonda Fleming. Is everyone able to hear?
Yep.
My name is Rhonda Fleming, and I am the multi-tiered System of Supports Coordinator at Newton Novato Unified. And what that means is, I know we use many acronyms in education. It's really about building a collaborative, student-centered framework that is data-driven to provide the supports and services that are needed to ensure that all of our students are successful when it comes to academic and social and emotional, building those social and emotional skills. When we think about that, that's a comprehensive a way to structure our organization to make sure that happens. One of the areas that I'm going to be discussing tonight is very much looking at how are we providing services and support to ensure that when we say all and each and every student, that actually means each and every student. So that's a little bit of an overview. So Novato's equity imperative, I just wanted to frame the work that we're doing tonight, that I'm going to be discussing tonight, as that is what it is about. And equity in Novato Unified School District means ensuring every student has access to educational opportunities that challenge, inspire, and prepare him or her for a strong future. So ensuring that doors are open for all of our students when they leave us. And sometimes we have to take different and additional measures to make sure that that happens. One of the items that I want to point out that's in our equity imperative is that we are committed to examining and changing structures, policies, and practices that contribute to an equitable outcomes and experiences for our students. And that's a lot of what hopefully comprehensively I can reveal and show to you as far as where our plans are. And I want to pause just for a moment because, first of all, I'm a part of a greater system working in the Education Services Department, but I have the pleasure to do this work with Mrs. Leslie Smith, who really laid the foundation for this work last school year, and she has been instrumental in supporting and continuing with supporting this work. So, all right. So our English learners, our students who speak, I like to say an additional language, who are learning English in addition to another language that is their primary language, and are working on communicating fluently and learning effectively in English. Our English learners are a very diverse group. Whether if we're talking about our newcomer students that were born outside of the United States, have been in our school systems 3 years or less, there's a lot of diversity within that group, and you'll get to hear a lot more about that with our update from our newcomer counselors. We have English learners with disabilities, our students that are long-term English learners that have been in our public school system for 6 years or more. And so there's a lot of diversity within that group. I apologize, I know this is not super clear, and for board members, there's a paper that was passed out to you. What you see here is our Data Matters dashboard. And what you see at the very top, well, it's hard to see, but we have a total of 7,858 students. Out of those 7,858 students, 1,205 of those students are identified as English learners, which makes up about 15.3% of our population. This is a snapshot from last week. It could change in any moment as new students enroll or leave. So I just want to make sure. This is from our dashboard that Alex Perez has just been instrumental with helping us to be able to organize data in an accessible way. You will also, some other things that are noted on this dashboard is looking at our percentage of students that are English learners that are part of our special education program. Approximately 208 students, making up 17.3% of our English learner population. So I wanted to explain that. I know there were some questions about it, and then let's see, one other thing, we'll hear about our newcomers, but this just gives you an overview of the English learners that we have. There are over 32 languages actually represented in NUSD, and how this is determined is when our students enroll, there's a home language survey that's filled out by parents, and they are asked questions as far as what language did your child speak at home, what language were they spoken to. So that's the process that we use to ensure that we're identifying students properly. And so from this, these are the different languages that are represented in our district. Board members, I did passed out a handout that really breaks down the 32 different languages that are represented here. Our Spanish is our largest. We have a total of 1,061 students out of our English learners whose Spanish was their primary language. We have a category of other non-English, which means in our data system, there are certain languages and dialects that our families speak that are not in our California data system. So you'll see for board members, there's a category that says other non-English. That is our next biggest group. Unfortunately, as a state, we're not yet able to capture all of those languages, but Portuguese would be we have 17 students, and this is spread out throughout the district, Mandarin, French, and Japanese. So I just wanted to provide a little bit of the count of how many students we have represented at this moment, okay? So when we talk about goals for our English learners, the California Department of Education has clearly outlined what local education agencies are responsible for providing to ensure that our English learners acquire full proficiency in English as rapidly and effectively as possible and attain parity with native speakers of English. Also, that's one part. And that's really focusing on becoming fluent in English and ensure that English learners within a reasonable period of time achieve the same rigorous grade level academic standards that are expected of all students. That is our task. And what I like to highlight, while this Department of Ed calls this out, we also know in Novato Unified, we value our culture of caring and also thinking about our graduate profile and wanting our students to be effective communicators, collaborators, and critical thinkers. So it's really thinking about how do we put all of those pieces together to ensure, again, that all of our students are prepared. So how do we do that? And we need to have a comprehensive system. So what you have here is highlighting critical areas and supports and services that must be considered if we're going to ensure that those goals we just looked at have a chance of becoming a reality, not just something that's stated on a piece of paper, but we're actually committed to it. And those areas are initial identification, assessment, and program placement, instructional programs, monitoring of student progress and reclassification, staffing and professional development, parent and community involvement, accountability and evaluation, along with funding and resources. As a local education agency, we need to have a plan, and we need to monitor that plan on a regular basis to see how effective are we performing in all of those areas. So there has to be a comprehensive approach. And what I'm most excited about tonight is later talking to you about our English Learner Master Plan. Okay, so but these are the areas, are components that you would see in an English Learner Master Plan. So, and the ones that were highlighted, initial identification and monitoring of student progress and parent and community involvement, are highlighted because those are areas where we've had to pause this school year, at the start of the school year, and really delve a little bit deeper into the practices, the structures, and protocols we have in place. So, give you an overview. In terms of initial identification, is critical to ensure that we're not allowing students to slip through the cracks. At the start of the school year, we had to do some work with updating our home language survey, some updates that had to be made on our enrollment platform, SchoolMint, and really it was time to bring everybody involved, from office managers to counselors at the elementary, at the secondary level, our newcomer counselors, our EL support staff at each site. And this goes back to what I mentioned earlier. This is about a system change. And you have to bring everyone that's involved in this work at all levels to understand the implications of us working together effectively. So we were able to reestablish some protocols and put some structures in place, and are continuing to monitor that, because we want to make sure that the students that we identify actually need the support. And so we want to make sure that's not a loose structure. That needs to be very tight, and that our students are getting the support that they need when they no longer need that. Our department is also overseeing our English language proficiency assessments for California Elpac, and providing training to our test administrators and supporting with that work. Instructional programs. We have 2 instructional programs, and there are specialized courses at the secondary level. But when it comes to instructional programs that we offered, we have a structured English immersion program, which is majority of our classrooms. It's a classroom setting where for English learners, which nearly all of the classroom instruction is provided in English, but with a curriculum that is mindful about second language acquisition. Our 2-way dual language immersion program at Linwood, we heard a little bit earlier about the work that's happening at that school site. It was pretty amazing to be sitting in a meeting, actually a few meetings this school year, and hopefully you all caught the news clip back last month of really seeing Linwood's program being highlighted, and being able to hear from Mrs. Diaz about the excitement, seeing the energy of going and seeing that kids are reading, writing, listening, and speaking in Spanish, and engaged about it. And it's not just the bilingualism, it's also the biculturalism. And it's really elevating some of our students that are often never portrayed in that way. And it's just very impressive. And I've only been here for a little bit and visit the school only a few times, but to really see how engaged the learners are and the teachers and their commitment. And Mrs. Diaz really pointed out one of the pieces that's really supporting that program with moving forward is the culture of caring, really creating a safe and welcoming environment where we have an additive approach, where you are learning an additional language and you get to maintain your primary language and your culture instead of a subtractive approach, which is often a story. Monitoring of student progress and reclassification. What I'd like to talk about with that is our principals oversee monitoring annually based on the assessments that we use as a district, and also some additional assessments that may be used at their site. We do need to make some improvements specifically around finding ways to support teachers and principals and in our education services department to be able to monitor progress informally. That is an area that needs to be strengthened. This school year, actually all of our students were given the NWEA, this Northwestern Evaluation Assessment, reading assessment, that really measures growth and proficiency specifically in reading. This is one of 4 criteria in order for our English learners to be assessed, but it's actually assessment that's useful for us district-wide to look at how are our students progressing with reading in particular. What are the areas of strength and what are some areas of challenge? So we've had some support with going out to the school sites and really helping to work with the staff to unpack what does that data mean. Otherwise, it's just something else that we give, and it's not providing next steps for instruction. So that is still something that we need to continue to do, because this was the first time district-wide that assessment was administered across all grade spans, with the exception, I think, of TK. Could be wrong on that. When it comes to monitoring of student progress, we still have some work to do with monitoring our long-term English learners and those students also that are at risk of becoming long-term English learners, and really us as an education services department working with site principals and staff to really use our data system to identify those students and put interventions into place. You will see down at the bottom, I put the reclassification rate for the last 2 school years. We've really been taking some time, Mrs. Smith, and bringing in other stakeholders to re-examine the number of times that once our students are reclassified, that we're actually monitoring officially as a system and checking in. At this time, what our requirements are by the state are to monitor for 4 years after a student is reclassified, and we currently do that once a year. We are reconsidering that to think about, especially in the beginning, if we need to consider 6 months after, in addition to just 1 year, to provide us with an opportunity to support before it's too late. So no decisions have been made, but we are really re-examining not our criteria, but how many times we follow up. This is just, I believe this was shared last school year. This is our reclassification criteria. We also want to do some work to really support the teacher evaluation and really making sure that teachers are informed of key things that should be considered in that. Staffing and professional development. Just one second. So we've had a lot of professional learning that's happening. I'm very excited to share the work that's been happening around proficiency-based education, which includes really targeting grade level standards. And this has been facilitated by our teacher leadership team at every school site across all the content areas. And it's really honing in on what are the grade level standards and the expectations, and what are the supports that we have to put in place in order to ensure that all of our students are successful. Now, some may wonder, why am I choosing to talk about this in particular? Is it specific to English learners? Absolutely. Our English learners, as you saw before, must have access to the same rigorous content standards, not a watered-down curriculum with lower expectations. That's not going to ensure that they leave here college and career ready. So this is really important, significant work that's going to impact our students across the district. We have so many acronyms, so I want to make sure I get this correct. Sorry. AVID, at the secondary, at some of our middle schools and at our high schools, we have AVID, which is Advanced Via Individual Determination is what it stands for, but it's really an elective class that's offered at our secondary schools. And we've had teachers that have been trained I think the last 2 years during the summertime and some throughout the year. What I'm speaking about with AVID, because AVID offers many courses. The one I want to speak about is one related to academic language and literacy, which a lot of our teachers that provide designated ELD at the secondary level are utilizing those strategies to address those goals that were outlined today. How do we really accelerate second language acquisition? How do we ensure that our students have opportunities to listen, speak, read, and write using the academic language and the models? And Clark Consulting, which has, I think, this is the 4th year, the final year with that professional learning. But what we need to do as a system is really assess all of the professional learning that we've had. What are the principles, what are the strategies that are really going to ensure that this is what we're providing? And that is integrated and designated ELD. And that is what, as a district, we are responsible for ensuring that our English learners are getting every single day. And it involves using the English language development standards. So our commitment is not to AVID. Our commitment is not to Clark Consulting. Our commitment is to ensuring that our students leave here with the skills that they need and those grade level skills along with the social emotional skills. And for the instructional piece, using these ELD standards are central. We cannot provide integrated ELD without analyzing those English language development standards. So it's part of my responsibility to work with the teachers and the teams to take all that they have learned through this professional learning and connect it to this, because this is what we have to be committed to, and we need to be on the same page and aligned with that. Parent and community involvement, our District English Learner Advisory Committee. We've had the pleasure of 2 meetings this school year at this point, and what has been spoken loud and clear is the parents want to see and better understand how English learners are assessed when it comes to English language development, and how are they identified, assessed, and supported towards reclassification. They want to understand how we as a system ensure that this happens. Just this past week, this week right now, we've been offering parent Elpac info sessions. Well, the Elpac assessment is one part of the criteria, but it gives the parents a little bit of an overview of when we say English language development, what are we talking about? What does that look like? What does that sound like? Our DLAC group has also provided input for our local control accountability plan. Dr. Carter visited our last DLAC meeting to get their input and share where we are with our goals. And they also expressed wanting to know, well, they also expressed how much support they receive from the community liaisons at the school site, and really wanting to be clear about how they can continue to get that support. Okay? Evaluation and accountability. So what I wanted to show you is from our California dashboard, our most recent data. And what you see here on this page is we're looking at all of our students as a district in comparison to the states. So this gives us an opportunity to see how students are meeting grade level standards. And what I highlighted tonight, or what I'm showing you tonight, is looking at English language arts. So you get to see where it says all students, and in purple, all students on the top, and in purple, that shows where we are district-wide with all of our students. And the language before, underneath it, is looking at whether or not we are above or below the standards of what those targets are based on grade level proficiency. Okay, so as a district, 6.9 points above the standard, and at a place where we're maintaining based comparison from last school year. Now I want to show you where, looking at a student group that we're talking about tonight, the English learners. You get to see on the left-hand side where our English learners are district-wide, and you have on the right-hand side a comparison at the state. Again, looking at this, it's very clear that we have some work work is already happening, but we have a long road ahead to ensure that we get, again, all of our students to the same place where they are prepared, okay? But I do, again, we look at some of the language around maintaining, but data, this is doing what it needs to tell us where we are, and this is one measure to look at that. This is also another piece of information that is shared on the dashboard, our English Learner Progress Indicator. If you go to the dashboard, you will realize that we are not assigned a color. That is because the Elpac summative assessment, until we reach the 3rd year of implementing or administering that assessment, which will be this year, 2020, that next winter is when we will actually have a color assigned to us. But we are able to look and measure progress, and looking at where our English learners are towards English language proficiency. Are they making progress? Are they moving to the next performance level? We have 4 performance levels on our Elpac summative assessment, which is what's taken annually. The testing window is actually going to be starting on February 3rd and open to May 31st. And when we talk about that, we look at our students. When you talk about those 4 performance levels, we look at, are they making growth with going from a level 1 to a level 2? Which is their English well developed, or is it somewhat developed? Is it minimally developed? So if our students maintain a level 4, which is the goal, that is the criteria, if they maintain that, that's considered that they've moved up to the next level. If they move from a level 1 to a 2, that is obviously considered they've moved up to the next level. But there is a formula that they're using that within levels 2 and 3, there's a high 2 and a low 2. So there's also opportunities to show progress within a level. Okay? Funding and resources, our two main sources of funding for, and this is specific of funding for specifically for English learners. So our Title III funds, and then also our LCFF, our local control funding formula. And what I did not add to this slide, and I will send one later, is I want to be clear, it's local control funding formula supplemental funds. Okay, so I will make a note to that and add that to the slides. These remain to be our two main sources of funding, and we are accountable of making sure that we are aligned and that whether if it's parent engagement, it's curriculum or supports, that it is aligned to our data, and we are monitoring progress for that. The most exciting part tonight, it's time for us to have an English learner master plan. And Mrs. Smith and I have, well, actually last school year this work began with administrators, I believe some community liaisons and teachers, to begin looking at different master plans and just building some understanding about the different components. This year we've spent a lot of time examining English learner master plans. We've looked at Sanger Unified, Oakland Unified, Chula Vista, Santa Rosa, and reaching out to a consultant with WestEd, that's a director of English Learner Services, to really learn more about districts that have moved their master plan from something that sits on a shelf to being able to put it into action. So we've really been studying these different components within different districts and doing some backwards planning to think about when we outline these components, what information must be there. Again, because this is our roadmap, this is our guide. So we will have a draft English Learner Master Plan available by May of this school year. And I can't tell you how excited we are. It's going to be a lot of work, and our students deserve it. And it's time. And within that master plan, one key area that we've been considering is looking at the English Learner Roadmap, which was adopted recently by the state of California. And it's really a call for local education agencies to really embrace the language and cultures that our students represent. It's really embracing bilingualism, biculturalism, and it's going to help us to update our policies. We have newer standards with Common Core state standards. We have new ELD standards, and our practices, our supports, and our funding should be aligned to what is called out in there. So it's really a tool for us to build capacity as an agency to know that we are addressing those key areas. And some of the principles that are infused in the English Learner roadmap that we want to make sure are integrated in our master plan is looking at assets-oriented and needs-responsive schools. And this is one of the biggest shifts that I think needs to happen across, it's not specific to Novato Unified, but across the board. Are we looking at our English learners and their assets? Often we use the term limited English proficient when we identify our students. That will change next school year. We're going to take that coding out of Data Matters because that language was started by the state of California. We identified students as limited English proficient and non-English proficient. And that's the language of deficits. And I hear it from our parents, I hear it from teachers, I hear it from students and the community. So really building from the assets that our English learners hold. Another principle is intellectual quality of our instruction, making sure that we're giving our students meaningful access. That's what the work is about. Access means I understand at this moment what we're talking about, what we're learning about. I understand what I need in order to graduate from college and have the opportunity to go to any college that I want to. Another principle is system conditions that support effectiveness. That's the work around multi-tiered system of supports. It's not the role of the teacher alone. It's not the role of the principal. It's not the role of education services. This is going to need to be a system-wide collaborative effort. We have to talk to each other. And we have to hold each other accountable if we're going to ensure that, again, when we say all in each and every, that is exactly what we mean. And the last principle is alignment and articulation across systems. So very passionate about this work, and thank you for the opportunity to give you this update.
Yeah.
I'm sure I went over, so questions
No,
and
it's good.
comments.
Trustee Gila.
So, bravo with all of this. This is so fascinating and very well deserving. And I'm so happy that we're doing this and we're able to provide this to our students. I had the opportunity to have my nephews attend the school system last year, or was it the year before, coming from Finland. And so I was with them. I saw how this worked, and there were a lot of holes that this will now fill, and so happy to be able to see this come to life. And so there's going to be a lot of, I'm sure the master plan will be a draft.
Yes.
And there's going to be a lot of fixing and adjusting.
It will be how we report annually to the board, but also checkpoints throughout. And it's our accountability, our roadmap, and there will be revisions.
Yes.
Annually.
Annually, so that's great. Just so happy that we're involving parents in this, because I too agree that success to our schools is having the parents involved. And if we're going to also not just focus on the language, but also focus on the biculturalism, we have to involve the parents. I mean, so just hooray, so thank you so much for that. And of course, it's going to be in Spanish at some point.
Yes, it will.
Okay.
It will. Once we get our draft and it's approved by the board, then that will be the next steps. And we're working to get a lot of information on our district site that's accessible to parents.
So when I say Spanish, I also mean like friendly, like eventually at some point in the other languages.
Yes.
Yeah, well, we don't have Farsis in here, but yes, I get it.
Absolutely.
So just a lot of work ahead, but so needed. And my nephews would be like, darn it. So thank you so much for that. And there's something else, too, that I wanted to say. And because this is going to make it easier for a lot of people now, and also harder, in the sense that we're probably going to need more help, like with the community liaisons. And so I would like to ask if the community liaisons have enough help or enough, how will they be involved? And then I'm sure that the master plan will help them out.
Well, we want to make sure that we create opportunities, I think, for all stakeholders to get updates about where we are with the master plan. And again, it's something that we're going to share with all groups as often as we can, and it's not going to be once we get something approved that we stopped. So it's going to be continuously.
Right.
I think in the role of community liaisons, we want to definitely provide an opportunity to link the parts of the master plan that are connected to the work that they're doing with the families at the school sites, so that, again, we are aligned with that.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I wanted to make sure, is that they have enough help, but that they're also on the same page with the master plan, and that they work together well. And I'm assuming that, what about, I'm not going to assume anything, but what about the other organizations that will help with this? So, for example, PK, and I know you talked about DLAC, and so that's excellent. Something that, like with PK, that the parents would also have it in the master plan, and they would understand, that's something that I can be involved with.
We're going to definitely need to make a concerted plan to be able to visit as many as different groups. Was invited to a PTA meeting this past week, but whether if it's our special education advisory team, our PTA, we're going to need to put a plan into place to be able to go to those, be a part of their meetings and share the work with the English Learner Master Plan to build understanding and capacity, so that people know that we do have a roadmap there to help guide us. So we're going to work really hard to ensure that we get the plan this school year and involve as much as we can, but really put some structures into place also at the start of the school year to be able to engage with the community at large.
Gosh, everything's covered, so thank you. So May would be the draft, or maybe
Yes.
with the final?
May will be. that's what we will bring it to the board, and I'll make sure we're aligned with dates for your approval.
Thank
you. Thank
you. Trustee Mack and then Trustee Gasson.
Thank you, Rhonda. Appreciate the passion. You're into it. This is good stuff. And here I go, knocking my computer over. Same thing. Yeah, you have a good group there in DLAC. I haven't been there this year, but they definitely are very energetic, and I think you have a good partner there. So I will make it to a meeting. I just haven't done it yet. Slide 4, if you can go back to there.
Okay.
There's just a couple numbers that just caught my eye. And being a numbers guy,
What's the, let me see what title it is.
it's the Data Matters dashboard one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's pretty early on. And maybe this is more of a Chris question, to be honest, but the one number that stood out to me is the absentee number, 10.7%. Is that kind of standard across the district, or is that a bit of an outlier? Is it exacerbated in this group?
No, we've been working on putting a lot of support into place to really encourage and increase. We've had some challenges with attendance as a district, and I think we've really been trying to put structures into place to really inform parents and to really make some improvements in that area. It has been a conversation, I won't say in depth, but it's been a topic during DLAC meetings too, of how do we really improve attendance with our English learners. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
What's our number district-wide, roughly? And I don't,
In the high 96%.
Yeah, this is for the
District-wide.
district specifically, but this is specifically looking at our English learners.
That's what I'm saying.
This
So-
page is
so yeah,
specific to
so
English
basically,
learners.
district-wide is about 4%, and for this group, it's about 10, 11. So,
And I
something
think
we should work
too, I think when you hear a little more from our newcomer counselors, I think within our large group of English learners in particular, we have newcomers that are students with interrupted formal education, or not just that group particular, but there are lots of additional issues that may be going on that are creating barriers for students to actually be here. You'll hear about, maybe not in depth, but that we have youth that are unaccompanied coming here to this country without a parent or guardian, and the challenges, right? So those challenges are not just academics, but can I just get to school?
right.
Can I have those basic needs met in order to be able to be here? So I think within the larger group, we definitely have students that have some challenges that not everybody faces that could make
We wanna see us
attendance a
focus
real
on that
barrier.
as best we can.
Yeah.
with LCAP-wise, I think, and I know we are, but I'm going to be zeroing in that myself. And then just also, the male-female split is just a little, I'm imagining for the district we're more 50-50, but it's interesting that it's a little skewed toward males. I'm wondering if that's just I don't know. Anyway, I don't know if
And
there's
I
anything
couldn't speak
relevant
to if that's the pattern district-wide, but I mean over the years, but yeah, that is our data right now.
But thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Trustee Gasson?
Thank you. And actually, I have an added thing about the chronic absenteeism that I learned about yesterday. I think sometimes because they're from different countries or places, that they take extended time to go back.
Sure.
I learned about that yesterday. So that's a possibility as well. That if they're from somewhere far away, it takes a while to get there. They're going to be there for a couple of weeks out of school to be with family.
Yes.
I'd like to say I appreciate your pulling this together with all the different languages spoken, because I automatically figure it's most Spanish, but it's intriguing to see that there are other, significant numbers in the Portuguese, Russian, and just,
Absolutely.
especially when you say 32 languages. I'm like, I didn't even know there was 32. So thank you for doing that. The question that I had, and I'm not going to phrase this well, but hopefully you'll pick up what I'm trying to get at the dual immersion program. I know, like in our other school sites from elementary school, there's a required amount of time that English language learners have their own educational piece for them. Is that happen at the dual immersion classes as well? Is it the structure the same? I know that there's both English and Spanish learning at the same time, but do the English language learners also have an additional time to learn English Is it the same requirement, I guess is what I'm saying?
They do, but it is structured. They really want to build, it's a gradual approach where you have, and I'll get specific numbers to you, but it's looking at 80% of the instruction being in the target language in Spanish in 1 year, 20% in English, and then you see that increase in the amount of time that's spent in English as they progress, working towards 50-50. So I don't want to quote numbers and be off with that, but there's a gradual release or gradual way of ensuring that we get towards that 50-50. So year one could look like a 80-20, where 80% of their time is spent in that target language. And I know we're building towards, those minutes are growing and they're moving towards third grade, where the amount of time that they're going to need to spend in English doing their work will greatly increase in third grade. So there's a gradual approach towards building that.
Okay, because it come up when there was discussion about English language learners, and so, and I didn't know if there was any distinct, obviously the programming is different, but if the requirements are the same for the amount of time, so.
And I think the reason for that, a lot of the research is really about immersing the students in the language. When we really think about what it takes to build proficiently, of them starting off and building that foundation, truly being immersed.
That brings up a quick question, and I think I know I probably do. I just want to make sure. The DI program, the Spanish-speaking kids in that program, are they all designated English learners for the most part?
Yeah, many are, and we can get you numbers for that.
It's just a rhetorical question to a degree.
Absolutely.
But anyway, okay, this is checking.
Trustee Cooper?
Rhonda, thank you very much. It's great information. Very, very long overdue work that we need to do. I think I'm looking forward to the master plan. I do have a couple questions. Once someone's reclassified, do we find, are they generally going to stay in that category, or do they fall back, or how do we prevent them from falling back?
So that was one of the pieces that I wanted to talk a little bit more about, actually. We follow up with the students once a year, annually, to officially. Okay, so there are things that are happening at the school site and throughout to monitor progress, but what I'm talking about is official checkpoints of where we're looking at a form that's being filled out by the classroom teacher and looking how is that student continuing to make progress. Once our students are reclassified, when that criteria is really strong, research has shown that they really truly outperform monolinguals. We've seen a little bit of gaps in that in looking at the data, which is what has prompted Mrs. Smith and I to really re-examine, is that once a time annually enough? Does it give us an opportunity to catch something before it becomes a bigger issue? And that's really our obligation to the students. So when a student is first reclassified, we are considering having a 6-month checkpoint. So that we'd really like to move towards twice a year. And this is officially, and I want to be clear about that, because we want to have conversation. Conversations are happening all the time about how students are progressing.
No doubt.
So I want to just make sure that's clear. We want to, as a system, put those checkpoints in place that we know we're going to stop and assess multiple times to hopefully eliminate any barriers and give ourselves time to support if there's a need. And so that's one of the things that we are re-examining, and it is going to involve having those communications with site principals. What structures do we have to put in place? Again, when we make these kinds of shifts, we have to inform and make sure that teachers, principals, everyone understands the why, and it's really about putting our students first.
Right. And I'm sure a lot of this will be an integral part of the master plan. So.
Yes, that will be.
And then, in your estimation right now, if you were to take a snapshot, how are we doing with respect to the rigorous programs that we're offering? Are we meeting that threshold, or?
I think
that's
we're
probably
getting
a loaded question.
Well, I've had the opportunity to be in a few, actually quite a few professional learning sessions with teachers. We just met with high school ELD teachers today, and it was really, we spent some time looking at the English language development standards, again, because that's what is focal when we are saying we're providing integrated and designated. We're not doing that if those standards are not a part of that. So I think the work around proficiency-based education and building these proficiency skills are moving us so much closer towards ensuring that our students have access to grade level standards. I can't tell you how important that is. There's no research that doesn't support the need for high expectations. And often for our English learners, the thought is we need to lower the level of expectations. And so they practice things at a lower level and we expect them to be proficient at grade level. You must have exposure, but with that, teachers also need tools and resources to support. Because when the target is really high and the student has some gaps or support that's needed, support needs to be high. And we need to be mindful of that shift along the way. So I believe that we are making a lot of progress, and I can't speak highly enough about the work that's happening with proficiency-based education and that it's being facilitated by our teachers at their school sites and staff development. And that's really that's when we see shifts.
Yep.
The people that are doing the work are leading that, and we're supporting and working to support them along the way. Is everything perfect? Absolutely not. You saw the data, and we have a lot of work ahead of us. But I do believe that we're headed in the right direction, and what I'm trying to emphasize is continuous improvement.
Perfect.
What are we doing well? What are our assets? And how do we must have a plan, because we're not hoping. We're going to put a plan into place as to this is what we need to add on next school year. But we also have to be thoughtful about adult learning and how we process. There's a lot of information coming at educators every day. And this is not about just compliance. This is about helping them to understand and understanding the challenges that they also have in their classrooms.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I feel like we're in very good hands, so thank you.
All right, I have a public comment. Do you have any, Trustee Nell, do you have, okay. I'm going to move to public comment, and then we're going to wrap this up.
No, just one question.
Okay, when we come back. Mariah Fisher. And then I'll bring it back to the board. No, just sit right here. Sorry. Let's take a quick.
For you might have an answer to this. So I just want to bring back to the table about our English learners the importance of access to electives in the middle school level. While I was sitting there thinking, I was thinking about in the elementary school, they have designated time during their day that is not pulling the students out of music or other enrichment activities. And so K through 5, they get to do art, they get to do these creative things in class. And then 6th through 8th grade, that all stops. Not that we don't do creative things in the core classes, but they don't get to play musical instruments. They don't get to be in the school play. They don't get to be in an art for art's sake class. And then they go to high school, and that option is back with the 7-period day. They can be in an EL class and be in one of those classes. And I've been saying this for years because our special ed students are in the same boat. But any chance to bring this back to the conversation for our EL students is really important. When I look at San Jose, and I see that's where I work at San Jose Middle School, and I look at the diverse population that we have there, I'm a drama teacher. My classes are not the same as the general population at San Jose. I do not reflect in my program the population of my school, and it bothers me. I would like to have a 7-period day at the middle school level. A lot of students would love an opportunity to have that, and I could get those EL students ready for MSA. I could get them confident. I could get them into the social situation that is so prevalent in the electives courses, and I think it would be a huge, huge bonus for these kids' lives. So maybe, is that in the roadmap? That would be great. Thank you.
So thank you for bringing that question up. That is a huge barrier and inequity that our English learners face every day. And it's not a challenge just here in Novato. In my former district, this was a challenge, and it's really about how do we provide an opportunity, one, to get them the support that they need to ensure that they are reclassified. The goal is not to remain an English learner. And how do we do that within the instructional day? With our secondary teams and our Director of Student Success, we will officially I know the conversations have already begun. This was something that was brought to my attention right from the start of really looking at, especially looking at some work that's happened in Sanger Unified and other districts. How do they think about that possibility of having a 7th grade period? How can we allow our English learner students to get the success, the support that they need, and have options to take those electives? So I wish I could give you, this is what we're going to do, and this is going to solve everything. This is going to take a lot of heads together. It's going to take a lot of building and understanding, because not everybody at the secondary level is even aware of that it's happening. And so I thank you for bringing that up. It is a barrier for our students, and it's not acceptable. However, there's so many challenges with the master schedule. There's challenges with how can we ensure that our students are going to get this support. Designated ELD is supposed to happen every day and be a protected time. So while we have the goals and we have what's mandated, we have to work together as a local education agency to think about how to be creative and engage everyone in that process. So I do not have a straightforward answer, but that is one reason why Sanger Unified is one of the EL master plans that we are looking at, because they have made progress in that area. So I can report back.
All right. So we'll hear more on that in the future. Okay. Trustee Gila.
Just really quick question. So again, thank you for trying to keep everything in perspective and switching the focus from, thinking that these are risk factor students with risk factors, versus protective factors. So this is a good thing. And so if we can get the parents and the students to continue, and teachers to continue to think that way and say, these students are moving forward, and so this is a great plan. With that in mind, we're dealing with a population that is, it's not I wouldn't say it's population that comes in kindergarten and they leave in 12th grade. This is a population that comes in the middle of the year sometimes, for many reasons. It could be immigration, it could be, and same way as how they exit. Right. And so I don't know if this would, at some point, to include some kind of exit survey type of, you talked a little bit about measuring their success during the school, while they're in school, but how about after they graduate? First of all, did they stay here or did they go back to their country? And second of all, were they able to, like with my nephews, they spoke some English, but then they were able to go back to Finland, and their English, they just needed that year, So it's kind of like the same thing. Would love to, at some point when it's appropriate, to have some kind of exit survey for this population as well.
Absolutely.
So,
to hear from the students.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And if I may?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'll be really quick. I just want to reiterate Mariah's comment, because I totally agree, and I know Michelle Cortez is working on this. She's very concerned with the diversity, maybe lack thereof, in MSA overall, and I think that's a major factor right there. We need to find a way, and we've been saying this for a while, but I think we really need to start really focusing on it. Find a way to get electives in to the middle school for kids who have to take something else, whether it's special ed or whether it's EL, because otherwise we're never going to fix the high school issue. Just want to put it out there.
Yeah, sure. I think I agree. I think creating that master plan will help answer this, get us to a point. Either we can do it or we can't do it, and I think this will help. And Mariah has been bringing that up, and it's clearly something we need to work towards in providing that elective opportunity. So okay, I'm going to wrap this item up. This is hard work, but it's great work. It's work we need to do, and you're doing a great job.
We are
And
working
Leslie as
hard.
well. Yes,
Yeah.
Leslie Smith as
and
well.
we have a lot of support. We're
Yeah.
really working.
So thank you. I think the lens is getting a little clearer. The vision that we're trying to get to is much clearer today than it was over the, this is a focus from the very beginning, and it always has been, but we're doing a much better job. So thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right. I want to circle back to our student board members. They did pull this item, and it's past the time that I said, and you look like you're ready to zone out. So I want to check back in. Eva left, but maybe what we can do, I have the information here. There's like 5 things that's pertaining to this new law, and that just automatically happen. So what I can do is I can meet with you guys separately, and we can review everything and go over what the responsibilities are based on what is in the policy now. Does that work for you guys? Or DJ, does that work for you if I meet with you separately? If I email the 3 student board members and I say, let's set up some time, and I'll go over your responsibilities and I'll go over this new information that's been presented. Because we can't, it's being that it's new law, we can't really change anything. So, but we can just tell you what it means and what it pertains, what's the responsibility. So then that makes it a little more, we can do a little more one-on-one. So I have Eva and then Linnea, right? Correct? Do you want me to reach out to Elizabeth? Yeah. Okay. So I'll email the three of you, and we'll go from there. And so we're going to, as a board, we'll probably move forward and approve this policy, but I'll sit down with you and explain everything. It's pretty basic, pretty easy. So, all right. Thank you.
So, Madam President, I'd like to go ahead and approve item 15C on the consent agenda.
Okay. And is the board okay that I take care of that? And Trustee Aguila can join me as well, and we'll just go over
That's
everything.
great.
Okay. We have first by Trustee Cooper for item 15C. Second? All those in favor? To move this item, okay? 6-0, 1 absent. Greg was the second, yeah. All right. All right, moving on to the second staff report is the Newcomer student update.
Good evening. So as a follow-up to the conversation we just had, now we get to go dive a little bit deeper into a specific portion of our EL population, and that is our newcomer population. One of the services that we have in place that is very unique Nevada Unified School District is we have newcomer counselors. We began with 1 newcomer counselor, and as our need grew, as our population grew, we were able to bring in a second. So tonight we have Marta Posada and Karina Ahuka, and they're here tonight to talk to you specifically about our newcomers within that EL population.
Can you show me how this works? Okay. Good evening. My name is Marta Posada, and I am one of 2 newcomer counselors. My counterpart and dear colleague, Karina Okuka, is sitting here in the audience, and she will be helping me present the second part of this presentation to you. We are here to update you on the newcomer programs. We'll begin by speaking to the official newcomer definition per CDE, and that is that each local education agency must identify all immigrant children and youth ages 3 to 21 who were not born in any state in the U.S. and have not attended school in any state in the U.S. for more than 3 full academic years. And who are our newcomers? This quick slide shows you our trends of newcomers and our numbers for the last 3 years. As we have heard previously, NUSD currently serves approximately 1,200 English language learners. Of those, approximately 299 or 3.8% of our students are newcomers. And as you can see from this graph, the majority of our students are at the elementary and at the high school level, and then thirdly at the middle school level. Our numbers are fluid, for those of you that are number experts, and they are ever changing. They change from day to day, and thank goodness for Data Matters, which help us track our students. Some of the stressors that are impacting our newcomer students have been heard before. They include familiar separation and reintegration. A lot of our students that are with us now are for the first time meeting parents, or they have been separated from a primary caregiver for multiple years. A lot of them are also having immigration instability, meaning that they are in the legal system at some point. Either they or their parents or their guardians are in process of documentation. Most of our students are facing housing instability, no different than our foster youth, meaning that many of them are renting rooms for entire families and are living in our neighborhoods, renting homes or renting rooms in homes. Many of our students also are facing economic instability and underemployment. The majority of our high school students are working to support themselves or support their family of origins back in their native countries. And I would say that probably the majority of our students have faced trauma, violence, or neglect, either here or either witnessed it or experienced it in one format or another. So the support that's available to our newcomer students, it requires equipped leadership. This population, as we have said, not only in numbers but in needs, is very fluid and dynamic. And so the services that we provide to them need to be individuated, and it needs to be targeted to that population, and it needs to be flexible and adaptive so that we can recalibrate needs as we see them emerging. Our newcomer students are coming with varying backgrounds currently, from multiple countries with numerous languages, and they require highly specialized services. So we are delighted that there are two of us now. 4 years ago when I started, it was just me, and as I said, my colleague Karina is going to speak to you more in depth about the elementary and middle school level, but I'm delighted that there's two of us bilingual professional counselors providing services to this population. Before I start to itemize the supports that we currently have in place at the secondary level, I wanted to share with you something really exciting that's happening at the county level. Our district is on the map. Our newcomer programs are now on the map, and the County Office of Education, San Rafael City Schools, the Department of Health and Human Services, Canal Alliance, Marin County Foundation, they're all taking a heightened interest in our programs and are really envisioning replicating those programs across Marin County, which is really exciting. They are seeing the success that we have had with our programs and the data that we have now that showcases our ability, as Rhonda had said earlier, that we are able to graduate our students at higher percentage rates than our neighboring schools. So for instance, what they have shared with us is that their graduation rate is 19%. Our district is graduating newcomers at higher than 50%. And that is attributable to some of these programs that we have in place, but more importantly to the wraparound services and the ability that now we are having in auditing transcripts and honoring credit that they're bringing from their native countries. So this is really exciting. We are hoping as a district to franchise our programs, meaning this is a term that I have heard used before, and although maybe not everybody here goes to a McDonald's, what is being talked about is why people go to a McDonald's in France versus LA versus Novato, and they said that that is because they know what to expect. And so when you walk into a McDonald's, you understand what you're going to get. When we share best practices, our goal as a district is to franchise our programs. So it's not about the individual providing the services, but it's about the programs that are standardized and become part of the MTSS framework where all our students are receiving these services. Okay. So one of the initial steps that we have offered our students is doing a thorough intake process. We assess their psychosocial emotional needs, their demographics, their education level, levels of school interruption, their health needs, dental needs, their affectation, meaning how are they presenting to the school, and their coping skills. And then based on this intake, we individuate a plan to support these students throughout the time that they're with us. In terms of the academic counseling and international transcript, this is where I was speaking to the point that now our students that are coming to us with no interrupted schooling or with some interrupted schooling, we are honoring the credits that they have earned in another country and therefore are able to help them catch up to their grade level appropriate here in this country. We're also doing a lot of research on legislative bills that are affecting our students. Thankfully, Assembly Bill 2121 is able to offer newcomer students the same services that are provided to foster youth and students in juvenile school systems or juvenile systems or migrant students. And that is because the state recognized that a lot of the factors affecting newcomers are also similar to those factors affecting those populations. They are facing a familial reintegration or separation. They have faced housing instability. They face economic instability. And they have many times attended multiple schools. What you add to our newcomer population is that they're facing all that in a different language. And so Assembly Bill 2121 came into play in 2018, and that bill has afforded us the possibility to examine their records, their audits, and do audits on their international records and give them opportunity to graduate either with our traditional program or with reduced credits, meaning that they must meet still the same core classes that they did in the past, but what they end up doing with reduced credits is that they don't have to do as many electives. And so they still must meet the U.S. history, government, econ, and all those core classes, algebra, sciences, but electives is where they get a little bit of a relief. The financial aid audits that we're doing, it's really important because our students, as you know, have also mixed status, and so we need to be able to counsel our students so that they get information that is not detrimental to their college readiness. If a student has been here less than 3 years, junior colleges will charge them international tuition rates. And so we need to be mindful that when we counsel students that they are they are eligible to participate in in-state tuition. But in order to do that, we provide for them an academic plan that incorporates the time that they are in state. And if that's not possible in our high schools, then how can they take advantage of those programs through AB 2000 or AB 68, which is for adult school or for colleges. We also this year added a Jumpstart program for our middle schoolers, and Karina's going to speak to you more about our success with that program. For the high school level, it's an early matriculation program, so our kiddos are taking their placement tests, visiting the campuses, taking an orientation course, and in essence, getting ready before they leave college, before they leave high school for college. Most of our newcomer students that graduated, I think one of you trustees asked if we are tracking them once they leave high school and that it would be neat to have that kind of data. We have anecdotal evidence, and we have students that come back and visit us that are in fact on track at either COM or at the JC. And so it's really wonderful to see their successes. Recognizing that we need to involve our parents more. This has been our third kind of key that we needed to turn in terms of supporting our newcomer students is the family piece, the family component. And so this year we are offering monthly orientation sessions to all the 3 high school parents and students. Themes that we discuss there are like the PIQE that you spoke about, Trustee, in terms of how it is, what is different about the U.S. school system, understanding transcripts, understanding GPAs, understanding mental health issues. We are partnering with our community-based partners like North Marin Community Services to provide some of these presentations with 10,000 degrees. And the sessions are really, we had one session where it was about just instilling hope in parents, because we started to notice a whole lot of hopelessness from our parents in terms of, why are they here, and what is, the sacrifice, and will they ever get through these hurdles? And so we brought in other parents that have been through their journey to speak to them. And so there's nothing better than testimonials from parents to parents. And it was really a well received orientation. The coordination of services team is a process that I introduced 4 years ago, and that was so that we could do wraparound services and check in individually with students, but that took too much time, so we turned it into speed check-ins that I think I've reported to you in the past, and that is that we sit with students and call them in and sit at tables, and they go from table to table to talk with me for academic reasons with 10,000 degrees about scholarships, financial aid, and maybe with our community liaison about things that are happening in the school, like time to order a cap and gown, or community service hours, or what's happening in the school for Spirit. And this year we introduced Kid Talk, which is a process where our school resource officers, the counselors, and the community liaisons come together to quickly talk about teen jargon, and so, or teen behavior and activities. And so we learn things that, how is it that, they're masking, if they're vaping or something like that, or a jargon that they're currently speaking, ghosting, and now it's breadcrumbing, and all these things in relationships and so forth. And it's really fun to have the adults bring in 3 jargons, and so we educate each other as to what's happening with kids and then what's happening with specific students of concern. And the Fuerte is the Family Reunification and Resiliency Training Program, and that is it's a 5-base module program based out of UCSF and Zuckerberg General Hospital, piloted in San Francisco Unified School District, and it's a 5-module to help parents understand immigration, integration, and students, and the process of this assimilation and integration without denying their culture. And then I believe one of you trustees also asked, what's happening? What do we do with our students? Where is our soft landing when they leave our schools? And so we have introduced pre-departure orientations as well. And so that involves, if they're not going on to the JC, then what is adult school looks like, what do programs in the workplace, what, how are they interviewing skills, resume building, cover letters, that sort of thing. And so now I'm completely delighted to introduce to you my counterpart, Karina Kuka, who I admire for her professionalism. Karina is a licensed clinical social worker, and she will talk to you about elementary and secondary school level. And then we'll both be on standby if you have questions or comments.
Thank you, Marta. Good evening, everybody. So I'm just going to, sorry, Ellen, which one is it? Okay. So just to give you a little bit more background information, I began initially at the district 3 years ago when I was completing a pupil personnel credential as a clinical social worker, and I was working directly with newcomer youth. There was a high need for individual therapy, and that's what I was providing at the time. And then I came on as a newcomer counselor in 2018. Initially, to primarily serve the elementary school level. What we have found over the course of the first year that I was here was that there was a great need at the middle school level, so I've also dedicated a lot of time at San Jose Middle School and Sinaloa Middle School this year. So some of the things that at the elementary level, when you're working with elementary age children, a lot of the work needs to be done with the family. So when you really embrace the family, you're really able to provide towards the child's needs. So one of the things that I start with is really assessing the student and family needs, looking at their academic, social, emotional needs, and their basic needs, because if those basic needs aren't being met, it's really difficult for a child to come into the classroom and be able to perform academically. So I really look at, do they have enough food? Do they have housing? Do they have any of the other basic needs that any other child needs to be successful? So in that, also looking referrals to community partners when it's appropriate. So if there's other community partners that aren't school-based, so we do have North Marin Community Services that do sometimes service our schools, but sometimes we need to reach out to these services in the community, other case management services that might be provided to the families. Consultation with teachers and staff regarding the student progress. So this is really looking at how is the child performing in the classroom. Sometimes there have been situations in the past where there has been a need for some advocacy if there's any kind of concerns with their gaps in schooling or any learning needs that they might have. Really engaging the parent in the child's education. So reaching out to the parents again, making phone calls. A lot of my time at the elementary level is spent with outreach, reaching to see how I can support them best, and also let them know that they're always welcome to come into the schools, ask questions for the teachers, request a conference, meet with a principal, and so that they feel that they can take part in their child's education and how that benefits them and their progress in the school setting. So another thing that I do is check-ins with students either individually or in group, depending on the needs of each school site. So being spread out throughout the different schools, each school's demographics are very different. Some schools have higher levels of newcomers than others. For example, at Loma Verde, there's a higher need for newcomers there than there are at Pleasant Valley, for example, or at San Ramon Elementary School. And when I meet with the students individually at this age, a lot of our work is play-based. That's the best way to communicate with children at this age, and we really talk about the immigration process, what it's like to be in a new country, speaking a new language, and how they're adapting to that. And a lot of familial changes. Some students are coming in and there might be changes in family composition, and being able to have a safe space to be able to talk through those things. And then again, advocacy on behalf of the student needs. So speaking to the principal, checking in with them as needed. And then on to the middle school level. So at this age, things become a little more complicated for our newcomer students. This is a really tough age for any child. There's a lot of changes that are happening, either physically, hormonally, or things that are going on at home. It's a complicated time for a lot of children. And so some of the middle school children, similar to what we see at the secondary level, have had a separation from their parent or caregiver for a significant amount of time. So some students who haven't seen their parent for maybe 10 years or more. And so we're really looking at not only just are they in a new country, but they're reintegrating into a family that they don't know. And so really being able to assess the student needs and family needs. So when needed, I've been able to refer families to ongoing like family therapy in the community, which has been really beneficial for some families to be able to smooth out that process. Individual and group check-ins as well. So here I also, similar to Marta, I also run the Fuerte program. We were both trained in the Fuerte curriculum, and I bring this to them. It's a wonderful curriculum that really looks at a lot of issues that come up when you are new to a country, when you're integrating into a new culture, and how do you maintain your native culture and language in the process of doing that, and also looking at how when you're reintegrating with your family members, how that can impact the relationships that you have with your parent or caregiver. I also do consultation with teachers and staff regarding student progress. This also includes being a participant in IEP meetings if necessary, or referring students to special ed when there's a need. We also did start up the Early Success College Matriculation Program this year, which was wonderful. We had a group of about 40 students that we took to the Petaluma campus, and so they got to have a tour of the campus, have lunch out there, get to see the lab, the library. It was a really wonderful experience for a lot of the students, and we really wanted to bring this in so that they have an opportunity to see the kind of possibilities that they have from high school and beyond. And we want them to feel that these are possibilities for every single one of them, despite their backgrounds. So here's a couple of pictures of our students on our trips. So if you see the first picture over on my left here, that was the trip with the middle school students when we were at the Santa Rosa JC Petaluma campus. And the second picture is when we took the Novato High School students to the Jumpstart program when we went to do the early matriculation process. So this evening, we just hope to establish an understanding of our Newcomer Counselor Program and strategies, and explain what our role is in Novato Unified School District, and just so that you're able to see the impact that our Newcomer Program has on student success. Our questions slide. Oh, there we go. That's it. We welcome your questions at this time if you have any questions. I was like, I thought there was a slide.
Trustee Aguilar.
Thank you so much again for this. I was wondering with the Fuerte program, which means strong, why is it only for women, for girls?
No.
Oh, I thought it was focused only for girls for some reason.
No. So the Fuerte program is for both male and female. When we got trained at what they did notice was that if you do a group separately between males and females, that usually it's more successful. I have always had my groups mixed at the middle school level, so I'm not sure about Martha if you've separated yours.
Yeah, and what the program has now been replicated in many school districts. Like I said, it started in San Francisco. It wasn't meant to be gender based. What I did here was to adapt it to families as well. And so while I was running programs for the students, I was running concurrent programs for the parents.
Great.
And that was really well received. But knowing the developmental, stages of our students, we've talked about, as colleagues, like maybe we should try separating them by gender at some point and see, because some of the things that bubble up are very intense. When we went to the training, I talked about workforce multipliers then, saying, okay, we can involve other entities like the community liaisons and so forth in this delivery. And what we discovered when we went to the training is that it does require mental health professionals to do this, because what bubbles up a lot is their journeys, their traumas, their separations, and so it needs equipped mental health professionals to deal with all those emotions, and so it can be gender, but no, we're offering it to everyone.
That's great. Good. I was hoping that was the answer. So for the counselor, how often did you say you meet with the students? Oh, both of you? I mean,
so it varies. It varies because I'm spread between all of the elementary and Sinaloa and San Jose Middle School. So at San Jose Middle School, I now have an office where I'm there 2 days a week. So that's more consistent. I'm able to see the students more consistently, and the needs vary. So sometimes students are needing to check in more often than not. So it just really looking at based on their needs. And then with the elementary level, this year I've been going to school sites every other week, and sometimes there's vacation or other things that come in the way of that. So sometimes I might be at a site one time a month. So it just depends on sort of the fluidity of what's happening.
Yeah. With high school, how often do you both meet?
I wish that I could meet with them more frequently. I don't. What we end up well, what I am, I work at all 3 high schools, and so when a population of 97 that have a huge needs in terms of, and the urgency. We have, students that we need to really engage academically that may or may not have supports at home to help us integrate that. So I would say that out of the 97, we have touch points that are probably every 2 or 3 weeks with some students, but we triage as well. So Karina and I have been part of the teams that have responded to our tragedies in the schools. And so when things like that happen, then obviously we shift gears, and then we're not doing our normal touch points with our students. And the other thing that we like to point out is that we manage the programs as well, and so we construct them. We've developed them. None of these programs were prescriptive. They were not in existence before 2016. And so we constructed them, we developed them, we monitor them. And I think I forgot to mention in one of my slides that we also monitor outcomes. And so we have pre and post surveys of engagement, pre and post surveys of knowledge. We have resiliency scales that we use in terms of where students were, at least at the high school level, when we first started to engage with them, and where they are as they're exiting, the school year. And so there are a couple of touch points where we monitor and obviously engage not only with them but with their parents. And so we wish we had more.
Yeah.
Either more time, the usual.
Yeah, just hoping that you're able to balance. I mean, it's so hard, but to balance the timing, so from freshman to senior, and then during the senior year, so no one's cramming at the end. Oh, I don't have enough hours to graduate, or I don't have enough. My credits didn't come through from a different, So just at the end, it just gets to be hard. And so anyway, really appreciate all you guys that all you guys do. So thank you very much.
Trustee Gatson?
Thank you for your report. I think I'm having the same voice thing everybody else is. The first thing, now that I understand Kid Talk a little bit more, I have a middle schooler, and if you have information to send from all those things, I think I would greatly appreciate it, and probably a lot of other parents, just so we know what those things mean. But one of the things I noticed, and actually wasn't mentioned, well, actually my first question would be, for those families that are not Spanish speaking, what happens to them? Since you're fluent in Spanish, do we have
we have a tool that thankfully the district has provided to us called Language Solutions, and it's very similar to what if you're a Kaiser member and you go and it says choose your language at the pharmacy or wherever. This is a service where we can call and ask to speak to, for instance, I have students from that's Cambodian, or the most difficult for me has been Arabic. Students from South Africa, from Ethiopia, and they speak Arabic, and so therefore we were completely at odds other than our universal language of smiling and, so forth. And this Language Solutions was the perfect tool, because I called, said I need Arabic-speaking translator. They put somebody on the phone, and we're able to communicate. I say something, they communicate it to the student then back and forth. Okay. And so it's been a godsend for.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
I will say, though, that a majority of our services are provided in Spanish.
Yeah, we have those, but I mean, I'm seeing Russian and, so Portuguese, although Portuguese, I guess, it's
very similar.
Yeah. Although we're Italian, so it's very similar to that too. And my other question, this is the one that wasn't presented in your slide presentation, but was in the attachment that I noted was and I thought was really a cool thing, the Newcomer Student and Family Community Fair that was offered.
So I piloted that this year, at the beginning of the school year, and we just brought in several different agencies from Novato. Well, not just from Novato, also from San Rafael, and we had them come in. Linwood opened the doors to us. I'm also a Linwood parent, so I was very pleased to hear you guys talking about DI. But so we opened the doors there, and We had it open for anybody, any of our newcomers to come through and just get resources. So we had the library, we had Redwood Credit Union, so people could learn about just opening bank accounts. We had Cuerpo Corazón Comunidad. They're an agency in San Rafael that does all kinds of live talks about different mental health concerns in the Latino community. God, what else did we have? We had Novato Spirit. God, there were several agencies, so it was great, and we had a pretty good turnout for our first time. So we were really pleased with that, and it would be wonderful to have it be an ongoing thing.
I liked it a lot, and looking at it, and what stuck out for me is that, it's, even though we're trying to be, it's the kid and including the family here, it's about all these other things that they've got to be, they're in a new area and all of that. And so my thought too was just having a partnership with the city, because they're residents of this area, and how can we facilitate getting them more comfortable with where their new surroundings and everything as well. So I think that that's great and really important when you're talking about, I mean, there was actually in the first presentation, I think it was, or it actually might have been yours, just you have to have comfort in home to be able to, move forward and succeed. So, that includes for me the surroundings of the place that you live in terms of your town and your community. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any further comments? All right, nope. All right, we'll wrap this up. Between the two of you and Rhonda and Leslie, you're very passionate about your work. You clearly can tell, and so that helps a lot tremendously. And please continue doing what you're doing. Thank you. All right, we are kind of quite behind our schedule here. Moving on to our discussion action items. The first item is 14A, approval of the Sutter Novato Community Hospital grant agreement for certified athletic trainers. If I could talk.
Thank you, President Butler. I will make this quick. Good evening, trustees. Jonathan Freer, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources. Thank you for your time this evening. The district is making a recommendation to approve an agreement with Sutter Novato Community Hospital for a grant to fund certified athletic trainers as employees of the district. Services the district currently retains through an MOU with Sutter as Sutter employees. In its essence, the 3-year agreement will provide the district approximately $247,000 to help fund 2 certified athletic trainers in exchange for traditional grant reports and communications. In consideration of this grant and current MOU with Sutter, the district anticipates its increased contributions to be approximately $3,000 per year. After the 3-year agreement, there is no guarantee at this point that Sutter will provide additional financial support for these positions, which, depending on the district's budgetary constraints in year 4, may result in reduction of FTE. Should you approve this agreement, the district will provide to you at the next board meeting a certified athletic trainer job description, work calendar, and salary schedule that are based on comparable data. I anticipate the salary to be approximately between $48,000 to $68,000 a year for 12 months. Due to the specificity of skill required for the position and the duration of the agreement, I've consulted with CSEA leadership to agree that this position would be non-represented. With this, the district makes a recommendation that you approve the Sutter Novato Community Hospital grant agreement for certified athletic trainers. I can take questions or feedback at this time.
Board members, Trustee Gasson? And then I have a comment card, blue card.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So I think this might be a little naive, but why is it a calendar year and not a school year? Because aren't you going to end up on a half a school year?
So the position would start July 1st and end on June 30th with 248 days built into the schedule. The reason being for that is because of the athletics that happen year-round, especially in the summertime, particularly with football. Athletic trainers should be there supporting the athletic programs that are not happening during the normal school year.
Right, so I'm sorry, I still missed it. So the contract starts January 1st, but
July
you're saying...
1st.
July 1st.
Oh, it says it...
It's a year, it's a calendar year.
Oh, well, the paperwork I saw was January 1st. So what am I missing?
So
am I on the wrong thing?
So I'm sorry, I understand what you're saying, Trustee Gasson. In this instance, it's July 1st to June 30th, a school calendar, a fiscal year, I guess, if you want to call it a fiscal year.
So what am I missing?
But the agreement that we're approving starts January 1.
January 1st.
That's what you're seeing.
Yeah.
Right.
But then it follows the school year. It's just that we're moving into this type of setup, this agreement is starting.
Or next school year?
We would.
Next
fiscal year.
Right, okay. That's what I didn't understand, because it says it's for, okay.
My apologies, yes.
No, it's not your fault. I've been punchy lately. So the other thing is the $3,000 cost. What is that?
That is the anticipated cost for us increasing what we currently pay through the MOU with Sutter for these services. So it's a,
There's a
it's a
shortfall.
contribution
Okay.
for both.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, we have a comment card. Karen McCormish.
Hi, Karen McCormish, fifth grade teacher at Loma Verde. I just have a couple of disorganized comments on this idea. I have a couple of ideas, one of them being there's a medical pathways program at Novato High, and I hope that there would be some integration of the medical pathway students into these positions, since it would be a athletic training position that's going to, and most of those positions generally are teaching athletes how to prevent injuries, et cetera, which would be ideal for a medical pathways, I don't know, correlation somehow. I'm concerned that the position should be a California board certified athletic trainer, because there is a California board certification. About 50% of the districts in California do not have athletic trainers on their campus. And so I'm wondering if there are comparable salaries are going to be based on the comparables that our teacher salaries are based on, or are they going to be comparable salaries that are based on other Marin schools? The other thing is, before approval, I would suggest that the board understands all of the costs and not the estimated $3,000 per year, because when we ask for a raise and we ask for 1% and it turns into a 13% increase in costs for the district, we got to make sure that those are truly played out so that we include all retirement or whatever else that comes along with it. And I think that's it. Let me see if I have anything else here. Oh, and then just, I'm kind of curious as to whether it will be considered a student service or a non-student services position. And that's it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right. Back to the board. Any more?
I'd just like to say that having had experience with our athletic trainer at Novato High, I can't imagine where we'd be without him. Things are so much better run now before when we didn't have a trainer, I don't know how we got by. And I do know we spent money on bringing in EMTs or whatever for games and all that kind of stuff. So now we don't do that anymore. We just have one person who knows all the kids, who's on campus, works with them day to day, and the most important thing is concussion protocol. That person monitors it and stays on top of it. It's very important.
All right. Do you have anything to add, Jonathan? No.
I just wanted to address the student service piece. So this would be a classified position, not represented. Also, the job description that we are working on to move forward with you, should you approve this, will require national certification for the position.
Okay.
I'll move that we approve it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Derek, seconds.
Derek was a second. Okay.
Yeah.
We have a first by trustee Back, a second by trustee Nell. All those in favor? 6-0, 1 absent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. This is acceptance. This is 14B, acceptance of our Parcel Tax Oversight Committee 2018-2019 annual report. He's going to do an introduction, I think.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right. Hey, thank you very much. As we know, we are extraordinarily lucky in this community to have a parcel tax to support the district. The parcel tax brings in a little over $4 million in local revenue that cannot be taken away by the state. One of the most important protections on these funds is the fact that we have an independent citizens oversight committee that oversees the measure and ensures that the expenditures out of this fund are made in accordance with the language that the voters approved. And per board policy, that committee provides an annual report to the board to give them an update. We have one of those members, Al Harris here, a familiar face to most of you. And I just wanted to thank Al and the entire committee who gives up their time for another one of those thankless jobs in the school district, and we really appreciate. Thankful by me and you, I know. But so with that, I turn it over to Al Harris.
Thanks very much, Yancy. Members of the board, Superintendent Kaska. I'd like to apologize. I wrote down my notes because I don't want to go over my time limit. I'm Alan Harris. I'm a member of the Parcel Tax Oversight Committee, and on behalf of the committee, we're very pleased to present our approved annual report to the Board of Trustees for 2018-2019. And that's this nice multicolored document. The annual report follows prior year's format. We applaud the good work of Ashley Albertson and Nancy Walker in preparing the document and attached summary financial reports. There's two of those, a summary report, a couple of pages long, and then a report from the accounting system itself. I'll get to that a little bit later. Page 3 of the annual report highlights an accounting of parcel tax income and expenditures. Parcel tax revenues of $4,177,000 in taxes and $6,670 in interest on the parcel tax fund represents 4.36% of the district's general fund revenues in 2018-2019. And the reference on that can be found on page 55 of the annual audit. The actual calculation is 4,183,800 divided by 95,751,700. General fund took in 95 million and change last year. All but 51,798 in parcel tax revenue was spent for programs specifically authorized in the 2014 ballot language and authorized also by the school board's approved budget. No funds were spent for any other purposes. The unexpended amount for 2018 and 19 remains in the parcel tax reserve, which totaled $120,586 on June 30th, 2019. Parcel tax revenues and expenditures are counted as a restricted sub-fund, and the sub-fund number is 9050, within the district's general fund. While the general fund and the accounting system are audited, sub-funds are not specifically audited. The district's auditors, however, did not report any material findings or exceptions to the general fund or the accounting system for 2018-19. The last report is the report straight out of, it's a report for income and expenditures for the sub-fund 2050. for last year, as well as the budget and year-to-date numbers for 2019-20. This report from the accounting system identifies the purpose, site, and object class codes for all sub-fund expenditures, and it reports those expenditures on a current and year-to-date basis, as well as detailing the adjusted budget for those expenditures, which you've approved, which may have had some interim changes. Unexpended parcel tax site allocations. These are the allocations to the specific sites for object class codes other than personnel services and benefits are carried over as an additional adjustment to the next board-approved budget allocation. So if a school site doesn't spend all of the $7 per capita for instructional materials and non-capital equipment, and there's some surplus there, they get that tacked on to next year's allocation. That's important, I think, for the school site stakeholders. So in conclusion, the school board, parents, taxpayers, and the community at large can be confident that our local parcel tax is being used as the voters authorized for maintaining important educational programs and maintaining the quality of instruction in Novatos schools. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Okay, questions from the board? No? Okay, I have a blue card. I have a comment card.
Yes, please.
Karen McCormish.
Hello again. Karen McCormish, fifth grade teacher at Loma Verde. I, for the life of me, could not find something in this, and I'm so glad that Mariah was able to help me with this. So I'm kind of bummed that you guys didn't get a chance to see this really pretty report, because it is a really nice report. The summary.
Yeah, we have
all right.
it.
The summary looks awesome. I love it. What I thought was amazing, and I'm teaching my fifth graders a lot about pie charts right now. So I love seeing pie charts because it really gives you a good outlook of who gets what slice of the pie, right? It makes a lot of sense. So when I looked down at the pie chart and I was looking through the site allocation fees and athletics and libraries and music, I'm like, yeah, okay, this is good. Now I'm going to finally understand where the parcel tax dollars are going, because teachers tend to get a little bug and a little bee in their bonnet when it comes to the attract and retrain qualified teachers and the parcel taxes and where does it come from. And then I see, oh, look, there's $1 million going toward this attract and retain teachers and avoid significant increases in class size, even though class size has been, I don't know what significant increase means. I would generally say significant might be greater than 10%. I don't know. I'm at capacity. A lot of schools in our district are at capacity, so you can't legally, without paying fines to the state, put any more students in our classrooms. So as I'm looking at, so I looked at that report, which was beautiful, and then I looked at the audited report because I want to get right to the chase. I didn't look at the unaudited report. And as I look at the bottom line of the unaudited report, that $1.4 million is missing on the audited report. So I was looking for it, and Mariah helped me find it on the unaudited report, that it goes into the general fund. And I saw in the teeny tiny little print that at the bottom of the unaudited report, that $1.4 million represents all of the certificated and classified CSEA and CSEA raises from 2011 through 2019, which this isn't, I can see how that would be somehow connected to attract and retrain, although I'm not sure how the classified fits in there. But I do see how it would fit into the attract and retrain by increasing each of our, giving us our 1% or 2% raises since 2011. But I'm a little bit concerned why it's not in the audited report. I again feel a little bit manipulated that we're just taking from one line item and saying that something else is paying for it. So I'm just, I'm concerned that, that we do a better job at explaining how we're keeping our class sizes smaller when we're going for a bound measure that's saying it's going to keep class sizes from increasing significantly, whatever that's supposed to mean.
Can I ask you a question? Yeah. So you were referring to this report?
Yeah.
Board members, do you have anything to add? Any comments?
No.
Okay.
I was just going to say,
I understand the excellent question. The date on this report is November 1st, 2019. That was before the district had received the final audit report. But the numbers didn't change between this report and what is available out of the audit for the general fund, of which the parcel tax is a sub-fund, restricted sub-fund. So this overhead label of unaudited ought to say audited at this point in time. The numbers are the same.
Okay.
Now, was the other question whether the description of that 1,413 was correct or not?
Yes. Because
1,143.
says that it's been used whether that number comes from the, like 1% in 2011, 2012, all the way through all the raises basically that have been authorized for the certificated staff, as well as the classified and the CSEA. So I'm not sure why the classified and the CSEA raises are included in that amount. Because that doesn't have anything to do with classroom size or teachers.
So perhaps the footnote is incorrect? I don't know, Yancy, do you have an answer for that?
Right. If you do, yeah. Otherwise, we can take it offline.
Note 2 and 3 stop
Right.
at the time of historical. Those are not part of 2 and 3. If you note 2 and 3, note that since the passage of the parcel tax in 2009, the unrestricted general fund has received a contribution from the parcel tax program that helps ensure attracting and retaining teachers by supporting the salary schedule, which is funded by the unrestricted general fund, as well as parcel tax funding is used to maintain smaller class size and programs, and contribution provides funding for 16.6 FTE. To quantify the number of teacher positions FTE funded through the shift of revenues, the 1,079 has been divided by the lower number of a early teacher, because those were the so that ends. The historical salary increases are just there for
Reference.
In reference and informational purposes.
Okay. All right, board members, this is an action item, accepting this report for the 2018-19 Parcel Tax Oversight Committee. All right. You have a question?
Well,
Sorry,
no,
Trustee Nell, I didn't realize that.
I intend to support, to vote in favor of accepting the Parcel Tax Oversight Committee's report. I just wanted an opportunity to thank the committee and the individuals that look and oversee the expenditures for this committee. I think if we didn't have the community support, we would have to find other ways to prop up performing arts, libraries, and athletics, and secondary counseling, which would make it much more difficult for us to support our teachers' salaries. So I think it's appropriate to thank the community at this time for what they do, and the fact that we do have a separate analysis or oversight of how the funds are spent is important, so that people don't get the misrepresentation that the funds are somehow being spent inappropriately or on things that aren't important. But it's a pretty simple concept, that the funds that are spent here free up the general funds that we receive from the state to be used for probably close to 89% of our total budget, which goes to our employees' salaries and benefits. And I wish we all wish we could do more, and I think we're all really actually working hard to see that happens. So appreciate the opportunity to move ahead on this, and I look forward to next year's report.
All right. We have first by Trustee Nell. Second by Trustee Cooper. All those in favor? 6-0, 1 absent. Thank you, Alan, very much for being here to present that and answering some questions. Sure.
In addition to being a member of the Oversight Committee, I'm also a parcel tax payer for my primary residence on Sunset Parkway, behind the Linwood School. Friends and family have asked me, you're well past the senior citizen age. Why don't you just get an exemption? And I thought about that quite a bit, and I'd like to give my answer because it may apply to some of the other questions that have come up this evening. First of all, I can afford the tax. That's the straightforward answer. The tax is rather modest, in my opinion, particularly by comparison with the parcel taxes in the other districts in Marin County. If you figure it out, $20 a month currently, maybe $30 a month. What is that? Fill up your car with gas once a month? What's a better deal? I guess if you got to get someplace, you better put the gas in your car. Obviously, I believe in public education. I think it's a cornerstone of our democracy, and I think it's an investment in the future of our civilization by providing opportunity and advancement. Personally, I've tried to measure where the cause of my success has come, personally. And I come up with a one-word answer, or maybe a two-word answer. Good teachers. I had good teachers in elementary school, where we had a 4-room schoolhouse that educated 6th grade, so you had split classes. We had class sizes up to 35, 36. My teachers were crackerjack. High school, same thing. College, even better. And teachers throughout my professional career in the public health service. Even teachers when I was on the school board. So, I, for one, have a great deal of personal thanks to give to teachers. And I think Novato does as well. And I think teachers' satisfaction in working in this district is one of the biggest selling points for quality education. And it's the biggest selling point we could use, and I applaud your support for the new parcel tax. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you. Appreciate your comments. All right, we will continue to move on. Our next item is 15C. This is the acceptance of the district's demographic study and enrollment projections. You have a new version on your desk. It's in purple. It's minor revisions. There was just a couple zip codes that wanted to be corrected. Nothing in the actual charts and the numbers we're really interested in. They remain the same.
Thank you, President Butler, and my apologies for putting a previous report before the final report. So you have the final updated report in front of you. Just to pull back for a second, why are the demographic reports and projections so important? Because enrollment is the basis of the two most important things in a budgeting for our school district. Enrollment and attendance is how we're funded in the state of California. So more students means more dollars, less students means less dollars. And as Trustee Nell noted, that 85+% of our budget goes to people. And most of those staffing ratios are based on numbers of students. And so as we move forward, our revenue projections and our staffing projections are based on updated demographic and enrollment reports. So that's why the enrollment reports are so fun. I mean, they're so important. I just think they're fun. Yes, little Freudian slip there. Given the relatively full build-out of the city of Novato and the district, the primary source of student growth and decline in the district is birth rate. As we've discussed before, in 2009, during the Great Recession, the birth rate in Marin County and Novato specifically decreased significantly. And have stayed at those lower levels for going on 10 years. Fast forward 5 years later to 2014-15, those students born in 2009 started matriculating into Novato schools, and our enrollment started decreasing at the elementary school level. We went from about 3,600 plus elementary students in 2014 to around 3,100 students in 2019-20, directly related to those lower class sizes. Our class sizes were averaging around 650 before 2014, and those have declined to approximately 500 per grade starting in 2014-15. That's why this report, it's no surprise that that cohort movement, that we've now moved that new normal of approximately 500 students per grade, have moved through the elementary schools, and they are now starting to move through the middle schools and high schools. The projections have a projected decline of enrollment of 486 students over the next 5 years, so a little less than 100 students a year. These declines are primarily at the middle and high school levels. So middle schools will see approximately 3 years of reductions, and then our high schools will start seeing them. Overall, we have stable cohort movement. What that means is If we have roughly 500 first graders one year, the next year we have approximately 500 second graders. The only significant movement that we see in terms of cohort movement is an increase at the 9th grade levels, and that's primarily due to the MSA and STEM programs, which are bringing in students from private schools, kids who live in Novato, and from other districts. One thing to clarify on in the enrollment projection notes is that in 2019-20, the enrollment did not match the trends that we've seen. We saw increases at the elementary, middle, and high school levels over projections in 2019-20. Now, as any good statistician will tell you, is 1 year does not make a trend. And so this continues the trend of the 10 years of birth rates and the last 5 years of declining enrollment. Now, our hope is that we've changed some of the inputs into that factor, with some of the things that we are doing, using some of the recommendations of the elementary school size committee, including the marketing with Target River and other items. So we'll be monitoring this closely. We hope that this 1 year blip continues and becomes the new trend. And when I'm here in 2 years, I'm hoping that I will be able to tell you about a 3-year trend of at least flat enrollment or potentially slightly increasing enrollment. But it is prudent to go with the birth rates and treating this as a blip until we see 2 to 3 years potentially of that. With that, it's a lengthy report, so I'm happy to open it up to any questions.
Trustee Gaston and Trustee Mack.
First, I'm glad you're going to be here in 2 years. But I actually stumbled on a report that was online from Axis, and it was done by the analysis of census data by Brookings Institutions, William Frey. And in that report, it actually states that there was, in the last 10 years, there was a reduction of 1.1 million fewer children living in the United States in the 2010s. In California, it was had the largest numerical decline of under 18-year-olds of any other state, and 40,000 fewer children and teens this year than 9 years ago. If anybody's interested, I can send that. But I keep hearing people say, you've got it wrong. There's, my friends are having kids, and, but this is something that's even showing at the state level. And it goes through all the different states too, and just how significant the change has been. So it's not just Marin. It's across the United States. One thing though I was curious about was, or actually what intrigued me when Heather was here and talking about enrollment versus ADA. That would be huge. The funding was a little bit different, so I don't know how probable that is, but it was a little flicker of hope for me, because that's basically what we're getting to, is how many kids, and then there's that component, how often are they here? How many, given that this is one piece of who's here, who we can project who's here, do you know how many students we actually have that are transfers from other districts?
I don't have the exact totals here. I'd have to get back to you on that number. We see approximately 50 plus at the 9th grade level each year, and that actually has been increasing over the last couple of years. So at least 200 at the high school levels.
Oh, right, because you do 9th to,
yeah.
Right, okay.
We don't see a material number at the K-8 level, but we definitely have a number of them, but it's not a material number like it impacts the high school. And
right, because of our MSA and STEM programs.
MSA and STEM programs are bringing in
students.
students.
And also the ROTC.
Right? The ROTC, although a little less impact than the other two.
Okay. And then my last question, I keep, for some reason I don't have it in my head. Where did we end exactly with, I know we were above, our original projections were that we would be declining, and we got more, but what was the net above that we got? Do you know?
Let me pull up the number real quick.
There were several different numbers presented.
That's approximately correct, because we originally had projected to be down by about 60 students.
So
and then
133 minus 60 or 130?
Plus. We're above projections. So we're up 130, or around 130 students year over year.
Instead of being down 60, we're up
130.
up 7. Okay.
No, we are up 130 students.
So above the 60 you thought were, so that's 100, I guess that's where the confusion comes in when I'm talking to people. So are you going to?
60 is above the projection number, and 133 is year over year? Is that what you're saying?
Hold on, I apologize. I need to get that number.
I'm sorry, I should have asked you earlier.
Page 7 has, if that helps, that has the 133.
The projection initially had been of a negative 60, so a little bit smaller of a projected decline, but the actual increase was 133 students to the positive. So above projection, we were 193.
That's what I wanted to know.
There you go.
Okay, so thank you. That's it, thank you.
Okay, Trustee Mack.
2 quick questions. Page 3, just kind of curious about that spike we're seeing in K 2022. I mean, it's a big spike.
Yeah, I noticed that as well.
It's definitely not smooth.
So
And the rest,
usually you'll have to go back to the 2017 births.
so was there just a spike in
And on
Marin
page
births?
10.
I mean, and
Yeah, we had about a 10% increase. 2017 is larger than the 2016
Okay.
and the
So
2018 cohort
2022
data.
is when they
Thus
show up.
the spike.
Got it. And of course, that's going to help, but it's just a blip, and it just shows up as a blip, and then it smooths out again. But my real question, and couches, I'm no demographer, but what I'm noticing in the methodology is that while they account for bursts, they account for cohort migration, et cetera, in migration, out migration, what I'm not really seeing them accounting for is migration of families, say, in from San Francisco or more urban areas, moving into Marin, like my family did, to be honest, for the schools, for the less crowded, a better place to raise kids. And I know that's anecdotal, but I think it's also, there is a big, strong push there because there is a generational change in house ownership. There is a fair amount of turnover going on in the neighborhoods of empty nesters, retirees moving out, and I think we're seeing a little bit of a boomlet going on there. I know they can't really track that, but I want us to understand that I think that might be what we're seeing as well as this year. So I just want to put it out there.
So I want to chime in on that. It's important to note what we use the demographers report for. They do a lot of work for us. The primary utilization of the report is to help us to understand kindergarten enrollment projections. All the other stuff helps. It helps to make sure we're on track. It helps us to make sure we're how we're doing as far as losing kids and gaining kids at the secondary levels. But the biggest use is kindergarten enrollment. And what they need to see is they need to see trend data over time. So if those things are happening, it should show up in the trend data. Right now, what they're saying is they aren't seeing sufficient, that playing a sufficient enough role for them to change their projections. Now, the hope is that between that and potentially capturing a larger percentage of the live births in Novato from 5-6 years prior, that we're changing those two variables. If we are, then that's going to show up in the data in the future.
Yeah.
Any more comments? All right, this is accepting of this report.
I'll move that we accept the report.
Okay. The first by trustee Mack, second, anybody? Okay. A second by trustee Nell. All those in favor? 6-0, 1 absent. Thank you for bringing that forward to us. Our remaining item is the Measure G bond Phase 2 allocations. This is coming back to us.
Yeah.
All right.
Could be.
Thank you, Mike. All right, I'm going to go over a summary of where we are in terms of allocating funding from Phase 1 and Phase 2. Phase 1 is the all projects that are in development, and so those are all projects that have architects hired, that have budgets that have moved forward. So these are all the projects that have moved forward, and there would be significant financial disincentives for us to change our direction on those projects. So that 119 we consider Phase 1, of which about $105 million are in direct construction and moving forward right now, and a little over $10 million have been delayed, but the schematic designs are done or other significant work has been done on the projects. In terms of the remaining $103 million, this is obviously for all projects that have not started that process, and that's how much the board has to allocate moving forward. Moving through this process, we've been moving down from the amount of money into the different buckets that the board approved for moving. And those are elementary, middle, high school, district-wide, a couple of district-wide projects, technology, which is specifically the One to World program, deferred maintenance, and then admin and bond issuance costs. Of the $103 million, we went through a process this fall. The board identified deferred maintenance needs as critical, and the board took action in December to allocate $44 million of deferred maintenance projects, as well as the $3 million that is the second half of the IT One to World program that was already approved at the beginning of the bond. This has $56 million remaining for the board to allocate into those different buckets. And so I want to be clear that I'm not here today to talk about individual projects, but move those into specific buckets. So in terms of Phase 1, this is the detail of the $119 million. As you can see, it's focused on the high school, a little less than $72 million. One thing to note is that in the district-wide category, there's currently $25.7 million. Of that, $20 million of that will be allocated to elementary, middle, and high school projects. They're just listed together in district-wide as they haven't been broken out for purposes. But I'll show a breakdown of that at the end of the presentation. In terms of Phase 2, we have the $103 million remaining. And I noted before, $44 million has been set aside for those deferred maintenance needs. Roofs, HVAC equipment, siding, those important deferred maintenance needs. And then $3 million on technology for the second 5 years of the district's One to World policy. program. That leaves the rest of the categories, elementary, middle, and high school, as well as the other category, which is a small category but includes Nevada Charter School, Marin Oaks, and the other district facilities, any needs at the district office, etc. So of the $66 million, primarily those dollars will be allocated to elementaries and middle schools, but there are some other commitments that the board has shown an interest in allocating funding for. So we'll talk about those as well. In terms of phase 2 allocations for board consideration, the board has shown an interest in looking at standards for our district sites and as moving forward as air conditioning as a standard for all of our sites would cost approximately $7 million. This $7 million is net of any costs that have been set aside in the deferred maintenance for replacement of HVAC at that site. So to make an example, if at Rancho they set aside $500,000 to replace the HVAC equipment and it would cost $1.5 million for air conditioning, $1 million is included here, really the net increase of those. $4 million is proposed for high schools and specifically San Marin. The Novato High has had its 3 largest projects approved, and the 2 projects at San Marin have been approved, and so this just helps lock down the high school funding at San Marin. And then a recommendation of the $1 million in that other category to ensure that there's funding available at those locations for projects. So of that $56 million, $12 million is recommended for consideration on those other projects, on those other categories. And as we move into the remaining $44 million, the board tasked staff to bring back an allocation method for those to move into to allocate between elementary and middle school projects. So staff went over a lot of different potential options and came up with 2 options that they believed are the best to look at. One is using the original facilities master plan document and the ratios between those 2 categories. So going back to the facilities master plan and some voter intent. The others is to use a facilities weighted actual student count. This is a little bit more in line with what the state looks at. And so what they say is, elementary school students, they've got a classroom, maybe a multi-purpose room, a library, and a couple other classrooms. At the middle school, it gets a little bit more complex. You usually are going to have a gym, you're going to have arts facilities, music facilities, and then obviously at the high school level, you likely have multiple gyms, multiple athletic facilities, and so at the state level, they look at a weighted approach to middle school students are weighted higher than elementary school students, and high school students are weighted more than middle school students. So looking at those 2 potential methodologies, it would they're relatively close, but the facility master plan ratios are about 58%, 42% elementary to middle. And then the using a facilities weighted student formula would be 59%, 41% based on our student populations at the elementary and middle school level. And as we move forward, if you used either of the 2 allocation methodologies, this would be the recommended total allocations for the remaining $103 million of projects that are not currently under construction development. So the 5842 and the 5941, along with those other considerations that were discussed. So staff's recommendation moving forward would be the approval of $7 million to complete a standards of AC across all district properties, the approval for $1 million for the other category, the approval of $4 million for the high school San Marin category, the approval of staff's recommendation is using the facilities weighted methodology, which is that 59-41% allocation methodology, which would have a approval of a $26 million elementary school allocation for phase 2 and an $18 million middle school allocation for phase 2. If approved, and you take all of the projects that would be, all of the allocations that are currently identified, this would be the total allocation by category of the $222 million Measure G funding. That would include $62 million at the elementary schools, $35 million at the middle schools, $107 million at the high schools, $5 million for the district-wide projects, and $2 million in the other category, including the charter school, Marin Oaks, et cetera. $6 million in One to World, $4 million, or a little bit under 2% in terms of admin costs, and bond issuance costs. So those are just the direct cost of issuing bonds of a little under $1 million. That's the $222 million. And just as kind of a test, if you looked at the bonding capacity of our district as a total, if you looked at it as an elementary, which would be K-8, and high school, which is 9-12, those two have an equal bonding authority. So if you looked at our $222 million in bonding, 111 would go to high school and 111 would go to K-8 under if we were two separate districts. So it's somewhat in line with that, although it's a little higher than our facility master plan originally. So with that, oh, sorry, I got one more. Got ahead of myself there. So the next steps, if the board moves forward tonight, would be to work forward to create those standards. We talked about standardizing the middle schools and elementary schools, and identify needed projects to bring the sites up to those identified standards. Finalize the process to prioritize that work after the projects meet the standards are identified, and bringing the board an update in February or March of 2020 of that work. So with that, I'm happy to open it up to questions or bring Mike up here to answer all the tough ones.
So this is not action yet, right?
It is.
They're looking for some action this evening.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm seeing a recommendation for board, 6 bullet points. Do we want to do each of those individually? I mean, because there's some of them that I see that are no-brainer. We should just do them.
Oh, the staff recommendation for the board,
Yeah,
this one.
I'm sorry, slide 10.
Slide 10, yeah.
These are the 6 recommendations by staff to move
That-
forward.
You want this broken out by line item? You approve each one individually?
I'd be happy to take a one by one or all 6
I'm sure
or
you
group
take them all
together.
too, yeah, but yeah, I get it. I would prefer if we do it one by one because there's some I think that need more discussion than others. That's my take, but I'm one of 6 today.
So maybe after some discussion, we might,
Yep.
just for efficiency, we might find that we're ready to approve 1, 2, 3, and 6, just picking numbers out of the air and then,
Right.
the others separately. Or we may want to do the discussions first and then see where we are if we feel like we can do all 6.
Yep.
I like his idea. Just, if there's some that we can just, for
Well-
me, 1 and 2 are fine.
Yeah, I'm ready to just move on one and get it done.
Okay, questions? Yeah, what do you think, trustee Nell?
Sure.
I mean, whether we take them one at a time or all at the same time, I I wonder if we don't make decisions in the very beginning that are going to prevent us from having some flexibility as you move later on. So I would prefer a discussion around what are the concerns around the 6 recommendations, and let's talk about those things. We probably have answers within the recommendation from staff already. But just to go ahead and approve one and the other, that's going to tie our hands, and we try to get into the ones that some of us may or may not want to do something differently. So I would prefer to get a better feel for what the issues are with the board, and then at some point we might decide it's okay to break 1 or 2 off and approve it, but not without discussing all of it first would be my preference.
All right, Trustee Cooper.
So I don't have a question. I just kind of, I appreciate you bringing this forward. It's time that we we've been talking about this for some time. And we've agreed to do the deferred maintenance, which is great. But it's time. I like the systematic approach of this. It's when we get done with this, we're going to have a system in place. So it's not going to be people coming here at the board meeting and saying, well, I want a new playground structure at my school. And we're talking, this is great because we're talking about allocating certain amounts of money and also in the future setting up the standards, which I like also. So some parameters. But I'm going to start right off with number 1, and then we can maybe talk about that, go on down the list. Mm-hmm. But I'm very happy at this point we've had so much discussion here in this room about AC or lack of AC rather at several of our sites. There's several schools that are still missing, do not have AC. And I think we've seen enough evidence as a board that it's important for learning and good learning for our students in the classroom that AC is important. So I throw it out, start with that anyway.
Trustee Mack? And then Trustee Aguilar?
I'm in agreement with 1, but we'll get to that. But to Trustee Nell's point, I agree. We should make sure we have a full discussion before we start backing ourselves into a corner, potentially. One thing I would like to ask about number 3, and of course you knew I was going to ask, is that have you seen any kind of a master plan yet from the site folks about what they want to do? I know $4 million is kind of a placeholder, but what is that? I know I hear different discussions about turfing the entire upper field, turfing the baseball field. Where are they?
So we do not have an updated plan from San Marin. And so, yes, this number is a placeholder, but I think it has some pretty good numbers behind it, depending on whether they're looking to do 2 fields or 1 larger field or.
$4 million, if I recall correctly, and maybe I'm wrong, is the cost of 1 rectangular soccer, lacrosse, football field, right?
No, 2.7 is the cost of or 2.7, 2.8, depending on how you're looking at it, is the cost of so going to a new area and doing that. It depends on the slope and what ground is there, depending on what dirt needs to be moved and what needs to be cut. But yeah, 2.7 to 2.8.
And if they were to just do the baseball field, I don't know.
It's a similar number if it was just the current field in place.
The challenge then becomes Title IX and the softball field. So
and the softball field would be in the neighborhood of 1.1 to
so
$1.5 million.
Up to 4.
Right. So
can you share what some of the $4 million options are that you've explored?
So some of the $4 million options would potentially look at turfing both the baseball and softball fields at San Marin to kind of match up with Novato High. The only difference there would be that Novato High has a second turf field, and the reason that San Marin doesn't necessarily need the second turf field is knock on wood, when the judge tells us we can turn them on, that we will be using that, and there isn't the same need, especially during soccer season, for that. So that would kind of match up. It would also potentially look at one large field on the top of that, which is approximately $4 million. So it puts us in the range there as we move forward. And it also gives the site some flexibility, and like you noted, to work on those plans to move forward. And as we look to standardize, it doesn't have to be obviously exactly. Our sites are going to look a little bit different, but as we look to standardize the things throughout our district, this would help us do that in terms of standardizing Novato High and San Marin.
Okay. And then just last question. I'm not entirely clear on what number 4 is when we already have number 5 and 6.
So the importance of number 4 is that if any of these numbers above changed, approving the facility's weighted methodology versus approving the other methodology would just be yes, we agree that this makes sense for a methodology of allocating. So if we said, no, we're going to take, I'll make it up, but we're only going to, we're going to do $2 million in other. All we do is we just recalculate based on $1 less million being available for the elementary and middle school.
Guys, that's a methodology that impacts
It's a methodology
5 and 6.
that we're agreeing to. And so
right.
if number 1 through 3 are approved, then number 4 doesn't actually need to be directly approved.
Okay.
But I noted it there because that is staff's recommendation for the calculation of number 5 and number 6.
And I would add that there's value in us being able to share with the community what the methodology is that we used versus saying we approved $26 million and $18 million. I think it's important for us to say that we've been thoughtful. We've looked at models that are out there, and we adopted the model that we thought was the best model for making this determination. I think that's why there's value to number 4.
Trustee Gila?
Thank you very much. So I'll just go down the numbers. And for number 1, I'm in favor of that. To me, it's also about safety reasons and also to just get all the schools in together. So in one, all the schools have the AC. So I would be in favor of that, and I could make a motion for that one if that's how we're going to go about. For number 2 and number 3, is there a reason why there's quotes? It's really throwing me off. The quotes, other Marin.
It's the specific category that we're putting it in. It doesn't. Either way, it doesn't need to be to the other category, which includes Marin Oaks, Novato Charter, and other.
Okay. So in
we
future,
could take it out if.
Yeah. Thank you.
Alrighty, you got it.
And then the number 4. So if we go if we go with the weighted methodology, is it the number of students enrolled, right? Or is the because you know how Mark Levine is proposing to make some changes with whether it's ADA or enrollment?
We're using enrollment. We're using enrollment that every kid counts.
So it's enrollment.
Not 96% of a kid. They count as a full student that we have to educate. So yeah, absolutely.
So it's enrollment, not
yes.
ADA. Okay. And so those were my questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Trustee Gasson?
Is that okay?
Yeah, after you.
Okay. So my question, with the amounts that are left over, and more specifically because I'm more familiar with the middle schools. Actually, I just had another thought there too. That's just Sinaloa and San Jose, correct?
And Hamilton.
It would be for Hamilton. Would be a portion of it. Okay, yep. So it gets okay. Wow. How much was? I know the gym is the big thing at Sinaloa. Mm-hmm. What was the anticipated cost of the gym?
We're still looking at the different options of what whether it would be a standalone structure, finding a place for that, or if it would be a renovation or complete renovation of the larger site. One of the other main issues over at Sinaloa is their inadequate food service
That's, yeah, that
site.
was- yeah.
And so that would potentially have to be combined, because if we're looking at standardizing that kitchen site is probably, well, besides PV, is the most inadequate kitchen. And for those of you who don't know, PV's kitchen is run out of San Ramon, because we have a very nice kitchen at San Ramon and an inadequate kitchen at PV.
No, it exists. It's just not allowed to be entered. So where I'm going with this is I'm trying to figure out, there's some big expenses there, and I'm not trying to mitigate all the things wrong with, elementary schools, but I'm just wondering with 18 million, I know that the gym is the big thing at Sinaloa. I unfortunately am not familiar with what San Jose had asked for. I didn't think to go back so how
arts,
much?
an art space. There was talk of stage. There's some
Okay. I mean, is there a
upgrades
ballpark?
to the
kitchen.
So for the gym project, I think $7 to $10 million is a good estimate. Yeah, a big thing is whether we have to rebuild the.
I'm not going to tie it to you and tell you that if it goes in and over that it's coming out of your paycheck or anything.
$7 to $10 million, I think,
Okay.
is a good estimate of the cost of that project.
And then the performing arts, and I'm not suggesting that that's where it's going. I'm just trying to, in my head, figure out what can we do with 18 million. There's 2 performing arts centers?
No, approximately $2 million.
Oh, so we're only, okay, so 18 million then across 3 campuses is
And
not.
the other thing that I think is key, and I apologize, we have a huge spreadsheet of how this looks. Is a lot of the deferred maintenance projects. Those are allocated out to the different projects. So San Jose, I know, has roofing needs that were in their sites. That's included in the deferred maintenance. The skin of Sinaloa, I think you've seen that was identified as a deferred maintenance need. So that's not included in these projects as well. That was already approved in the board adopted deferred maintenance. So the number looks a little bit smaller when you look at the total. The middle school allocation goes up to the 35 when you include the other projects that are there. So I know sometimes it's hard to break down what could you get for $26 million or what could you get for $18 million. The other thing to note is for all those projects, we also will likely to get economies of scale. We'll be trying to link those in with the deferred maintenance projects as well.
Yeah, and that actually I was just going to say, I would think that it would be offset a little bit too. If you're going to rebuild a building, then you don't have to do some of that, So I had figured that was there. For my big thing is this all makes sense to me, but I don't want to say yes and then be that we can only do, we allocate 18 and we split it up or however between the schools, and then we're short a couple of $1 million because that's what it would have taken to do a really good significant improvement. And again, I apologize, I'm still not familiar with San Jose, but being on campus at Sinaloa and seeing the facilities and understanding that their music program's great and that whole area is just bad, and the gym going in there, and it's one of those things where if those are the programs that are attracting kids, and I know the drama program and stuff at San Jose, that keeping the kids here, funding things to make that a better experience to me is important. It's a double bonus. The kids get a better facility, but at the same time, it's also encouraging parents to want to have their kids at our schools.
So one thing that I would note is we're approving it into buckets. These are the allocations into those buckets. And this board has the authority, if they get overwhelming evidence of the need of something, that they can move from buckets. What it does, though, is it puts a hard, fast line of, okay, where are we going to take the money from, which is not necessarily what we've had before. When I was in another district, they took half the money from every bucket and said, you know what, we were in declining enrollment, and now we've been growing for 5 years, and we need to build new classrooms. And I know you wanted the new playground structure, but we've got to build new classrooms because we got more kids coming. And they said, we're going to take 50% from every bucket. But there was, they had it in the buckets, and there was a rationale behind, and they knew exactly what they were giving up to add to that project. So this locks in the funding right now. And if the board still has the ability to change it, it just would need to identify what area that it wants to pull those funds from.
Well, and I would hate to set it up that we do this and then, I would like to stay. And so you answered my main question was, is there enough for the school sites to be able to actually do one of their, whatever their top priority is? And it sounds like for the middle school level, that it is. So I'm good with that. Thanks.
Trustee Nell?
Where to begin? Maybe a little bit more conversation around the next steps. I think it's important to get a better idea of explaining the creation of standards for the MS and the ES to identify, then here we go, needed projects to bring the sites up to standard. So essentially, you're going to be bringing forward to us what you think are some minimum standards that we should take into consideration before we start to approve projects
Individual
that'll fit in
projects.
the $18 million bucket, that'll fit into the $26 million
Correct.
bucket, et cetera, et cetera. So I just wanted to get a little bit better feel for the timing on that. Let's say we come up with the bucket sizes, we make those allocations, we have that set aside. So then one of the questions I think that Trustee Gasson was bringing up, well, what if we want to change it? And you brought up sort of an existential example of all of a sudden huge enrollment increases. They got to build classrooms. Sorry, folks, but we plan to the best of our ability, but powers beyond our control. We're gonna do this step. So I would imagine that if not only through the weighted methodology that we would make decisions, but we're also going to want to make decisions about changes based on these standards that we're going to come up with. So can you just talk a little bit more about, would we be borrowing? Where are we going to get these standards? Is there a book of standards somewhere, or are we going to have some workshops? Or
No, absolutely. So this is where we tap our construction and design professionals, our school architects, our construction management firms, and then our own folks to identify, what are those crucial things that every campus had for. And when I note standards, we need to note the things that we believe every campus should have before we start adding projects that a single campus should have. And so,
Kitchens.
like a kitchen, if we determine that every elementary school should have a kitchen, and that's what we brought forward as our standard, or an adequately sized kitchen, then we would likely, go to the list and say, all right, PV doesn't have a working kitchen. It's working out of San Ramon. That's going to be on the list. What's the cost of that? Sinaloa has an undersized kitchen that cannot support the 800, or it's very difficult to serve 840 kids out of that facility. And so that would be on the list. If the board identifies that as a standard that they believe that each of the campuses at each level have. And as identified, we talked about it before, that each level has different needs as we move forward.
I think that's a good idea. It also is going to put us in a situation where you take one of these buckets and you divide by the number of students in that particular grade level allocation, and you might think, well, everybody gets an equal amount based on a per student basis, but the facts are going to be some facilities are older, some facilities have problems from the past, et cetera. So we're not really going to be able to make these decisions strictly on equal distributions. They're going to be based on somewhat on need and what's important. So I'm just trying to make sure that from my perspective, these standards are going to be pretty important. So I like the fact that they're number one in the next steps. I would like to also add, and I think you may have mentioned it, but I think operational costs are going to have to be a reality that we address. I'm in favor of air conditioning at all of our sites. And I think it is a health and safety issue and so forth, but we're going to have to recognize how much it's going to cost to operate these air conditioning units and what that's going to do to our ability to increase salaries and to pay other things. So we are put in some difficult situations here where we basically have to balance program, safety, services, compensation is all related, but I don't think we can make facilities decisions without somewhat of an ongoing operational expense involved. And so I want to hear the $7 million worth of AC installations are going to be we may have to invest more to get a more efficient system, I guess is what I'm getting at. So if we're going to make that a high priority, you might be coming back saying, I need $9 million if we really want to run these things as efficiently as possible, rather than go let's buy the cheapest air conditioner we can get and be replacing it in 18 months or paying a fortune to run the thing. So my point again is this is great. I don't like a lot of it, but that's what compromise is about, and trying to get forward on a lot of things. But I think everything that you've laid out here is a good idea, good direction, a good system. But I'm just trying to put emphasis on the standards concept and this district identifying what I would also refer to as us being in fiduciary control. Because sometimes we talk about the high schools, well, what does that school want to do? Let's just give them $4 million and run with it? Absolutely not. We need to make sure that whatever gets built out there, we can afford to maintain it and then replace it at some point. So I think these standards are going to be important when we go forward on these projects, that we're just basically saying, this is the allotment, but this is how we have to approach the expenditures at your site, and be aware that some places may have more needs than yours. So I'm not going to take time complaining about the preferences that I would have over your particular recommendations. I'm going to compromise, and I'm going to recommend that we move ahead with the dollar amounts, the methodology that you put forward. But I would really like to see something go into the standards part and and how we're going to prioritize these projects now that we've built these buckets and filled them up with the remaining funds.
Okay. I agree with Trustee Nell completely. I want to take this at a high level. I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of this. You've brought a process forward to us. I like the approach you take. I trust the two of you guys, and I know, Chris, you're part of the conversations as well. I'm not an expert in what we can and can't do in regards to facilities. I can give you my 2 cents of what I want and what I think might be right, but I think we're headed on the right direction in what you've laid out, and there's more to come. You know this board very well, that we're going to look at everything, and we're asking some of those nitty-gritty questions in order to approve this recommendation. So I'm good with what you have laid out here. I think it's the right approach. Some of the things that I'm looking at, I know we'll get into those conversations with the middle school and elementary school allotments and how that all plays out. So I'm good with that. We do have one blue card, so I'm going to move to that. Mariah Fisher. We didn't forget you. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So you forgot us.
I feel like I wrote it down, but it's been a long day. Okay. I'm going to try really hard to get this all in the 3 minutes. I have a problem with looking at it equally between K-8 and 9 through 12. We have 2 sites in 9 through 12 and 10 sites K through 8. So I don't think that should be a measure that we use as a standard. I have a problem with Hamilton being in the middle school section. 31% of the students at Hamilton are middle school. 69% are elementary school. I think it's an elementary school as far as if it has to be one or the other. Otherwise, it really should be split accordingly. If we're looking at that 18 million being split between 3 middle schools, that's not equal when we're really talking about this in terms of all of a sudden the 3 middle schools are getting the same amount, because that's an elementary school. just want to comment, excuse me, on the really not looking at individual projects until we look at what we really want for all schools. I love MSA and I love Novato High. I will have kids going there probably next year. They got a $25 million theater. So if we started this whole process by looking at individual projects. So I'm frustrated that we might be mid-ship or midway looking at it differently. The $4 million just on reserve for San Marin, you guys have brought up some concern about that. You know, that's 2 theaters for San Jose. And I have a real problem with equalizing Novato High and San Marin to the point where we look at the numbers and just say San Marin gets $4 million more, but we're not sure what for yet. Because if we're looking at numbers, Novato High is a larger school. So if we are looking at enrollment as a reason and not, you know, equal just because they're 2 high schools, then it's okay for Novato High to have a little bit more. Their enrollment is higher, I believe, I'm pretty sure. San Jose fought really hard for our air conditioning from the bond. We rallied parents, the teachers rallied, we worked tirelessly. I agree that the other 5 sites should have AC. I am not saying that I disagree with that in any way, but I want it to be in the conversation that was what San Jose got. And now that other schools are getting that too, I feel like, you know, I don't want San Jose to be forgotten when it comes to recognizing that was our big give, was that we got AC. And now all these other schools who are, you know, getting huge theaters and, you know, all these other projects are now also getting AC. That needs to be recognized on our site. And the $4 million.
Keep going if you have it.
Well, I just really have a lot of notes on here because this is like our one shot to get our school something that, you know, makes us really proud and really have something big. And I would love to see data on how many students leave at 5th grade. I have a lot of students that go to Good Shepherd for middle school and then they come back for high school. And I think this is a really key year or a really key time and a really key campus of the middle school, and we don't get recognized for how critical that is. And I think there is data to support that students are here K through 5, they leave 6 through 8, they come back 9 through 12. And it's for reasons like this where I feel like we're the underdog. And yeah, I'm happy to be on any sort of committee to help with this because it's really important to me. Thank you.
Thank you. I forgot to ask this about technology. We're in a good place with technology in regards to infrastructure and what Tim needs and everything. And
Well, I'm sure Tim would tell you that he
I
needs.
know. I'm just
absolutely
I know
no.
you've had those conversations with him, and
And Tim meets with our
making it work is from what I.
he's making it work, and we're making the important decision. I think a key decision was last year holding off on moving forward
Right.
in the 2019 year.
Okay.
You know, because we really realized that not everything was buttoned up, and to Trustee Nell's point, we've only got this money once, and
Right.
we've got to spend it wisely. And I think we made the right decision by pulling back. And I think the project is going to be significantly better now that
Okay.
we've held off, and we're actually getting
Nothing
ready
has
to.
changed in that. And
No, we're going to be coming back to you guys for permission to go out for bid on that project in the next 2 months. I believe it's a March meeting. Yeah.
Okay.
So
All right, thank you. All right, you've heard from Trustee Nell, myself. Anybody else want to chime in?
I'd like to make a motion. I think this is a great approach, and I think it's going to serve us well. Future discussion about specific projects and all that after we do the standards, and I think that's the right thing to do. So I would like to make a first on that to approve it.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. First by trustee Cooper, a second by trustee Aguila. This is accepting the recommendations from staff, approval of the Phase 2 allocation of $55.95 million as detailed in the attached presentation. All those in favor? 6-0, 1 absent. Are you good? Couldn't
Thank you
get
for
better, can
couldn't be better. Although now Tim's going to be here at the next meeting,
Yeah.
saying all the fancy IT equipment that he wants. No, but thank you.
All right, board members, our next regular scheduled board meeting is January 28th. And then we have a special meeting on Saturday, February 8th at 9 a.m. So make sure you have that on your calendar. All right, this meeting is adjourned. We've done everything, correct? Yes. You will not. Okay.